And in modern day, like it sounds crazy because we were raised being like 30 with no kids, not married, not making $1 million.
Yes.
It's like no, today that's not weird.
No.
Like someone said it. It was like living with your parents is the new apartment. Apartment
Yeah.
is the new house. House is the new mansion.
Yep.
And
And mansion is the new private island.
yeah.
It's the Casey and Zoe thing.
Okay. We're back. Casey's
back.
pouring some water.
Just pouring water, but we like to
Yeah, you don't see it off camera.
come back on time.
Look at that water pour.
We like to come back on
I made
time.
breakfast. I made eggs and I poured hot sauce all over them because I can't just eat plain eggs or they taste too much like eggs and then I don't like it. Like I eat a lot of eggs. I like eggs, but like if you know when you eat chicken and it's too much chicken-y, it's like, "Oh, that's way too chicken-y." And then you're like, "Ugh." That's how I feel the same way about eggs. Like if it tastes too much like egg, it makes me gag. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just
think-
needed Casey
I
to
think
validate it.
I think most people understand or relate to the thing of, too much chicken. I don't like it anymore. Too much eggs. Back in the the 50s, 60s, when chicken was being made into a staple of the American diet, because it wasn't always. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of advancement in chicken breeding and making them as beefy as possible, so you can get a bunch of meat out of them.
Beefy chickens, you say?
And who was it? Who a president ran on like a chicken in every pot? It was like a campaign slogan back then. And back then they used to say, if like you had too much chicken and you were sick of it, they'd say, "I'm clucking."
I love that there was a word for it.
Yeah. Because the moment chicken became a standard part of the American diet, people started getting sick of chicken.
I need a napkin.
We were talking about this the other day about how like it used to be like pork chops were the standard.
Pork chops were the standard for like a really long time, and they're still the most popular meat in the world.
Pork chop specifically? Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
I thought it would be chicken, but it's pork chops.
Here are your headphones, by the way. I'll grab mine.
Thank you.
Of course. So we're going to take a moment and mukbang a little bit, eat our food, because we don't want to include us eating on the Clown College segment. So yeah, we're just going to eat a little bit, chat a bit, and then dive into Clown College.
Get ready. Talk about what we know about co-ops before we look into anything crazy.
Indeed.
I'm going to eat with a fork because I respect you guys.
I guess maybe I'll let you eat first and read. I don't think we can both sit here and silently eat. I mean, I know people do streams like that.
I'm a very fast eater.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm just going to let you wolf it down as you do.
Casey's a slow eater, and I eat like I'll never have a meal again.
Yeah.
I've had so many people to tell me to slow down. They're like, it's okay. You have 2 more meals coming today. And I'm like
Yeah.
trying to eat my food.
Looking at the news. I see all the stuff you were reading about earlier. Telomere Grace's character beautiful issue. Helen Mirren on the cover of People's Beautiful issue. What news?
Ragnuts, I don't know the answer to that question. Casey might.
Ooh, what Musk's past tweets reveal about Twitter's next owner. What's up?
Our co-ops, mostly farming and...
No, actually not in the not modern co-ops. There's a huge affiliated group of co-ops. I think based in Italy is something I wanted to read about today. Certainly, I think co-ops started as for like a little farming co-op. you know, a community garden with like a shop attached where they'd sell the produce and stuff like that, or yeah, crafting little artisanal things. But now, I mean, there are, you know, companies like any other substantial company that are co-ops. They are still, I think, all you know, a bit relatively smaller. Like there's no, like, you know, there's nothing the size of Nike that's like a worker co-op, or you know, Apple computers or whatever. But they are like full on like businesses, like factories, and like doing stuff, doing more than farming and crafting. And I just saw Ragnats. He said, "You've never felt it was too chickeny. You just got to eat more chicken. Just eat chicken every day for years."
It's like such a specific feeling. It's like it's like too much.
Yeah.
Like, I like chicken, but I'll like reach a point where I'm like, ugh.
Sure.
Like, it literally makes me gag.
No, I get it.
I also like with food textures. I'm very particular.
Yeah. And you
It's part of why I hate fish.
Well, I was gonna say you don't like fish at all,
I hate fish.
which is crazy.
I truly despise eating fish.
I love fish,
No, absolutely not.
but you'll eat tuna salad,
Because it's a bowl of mayonnaise.
right?
That's delicious. I can do fish sticks too, or like fried calamari. I can do.
I'm surprised you can do a fried calamari.
I can do California rolls.
Right.
Well, I don't primarily hate fish for textures, Ragnats. I hate fish because of the taste of
You
the
hate
ocean.
fishiness, yeah.
But a lot of my least favorite textures are from ocean creatures, like shrimp. I can't. It's
Yeah,
like
and
that.
shrimp
Like
is a very specific.
it like
texture.
bites me back. I like try to bite a shrimp and it like fights back. I can't. I don't want the food to like give me guff when I'm trying to eat it.
I wonder if you went to this place, or a place like it. Have you ever heard of Killer Shrimp? I don't know if it still exists. There used to be one in Studio City, and I think one in Malibu. And it was like big, like, you know, but basically the standard thing to do there is you go and you order and you get like a huge, like, colander of shrimp in a broth, in like a very flavorful, delicious broth, and then just baskets of bread. And all you eat is like bread and the shrimp, and then like dip the bread in the broth, and it's like delicious.
That sounds gross.
But I'm saying, like, I think your idea of shrimp is like very rooted in like a shrimp cocktail, right? Like a cold, rubbery
They're rubber.
shrimp. Well, I'm saying when you have it like, you know, in a broth, they're not so rubbery, so you might like that more. Oh yeah, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, Ragnats. Yeah.
Yes.
I definitely. I mean, I've been in LA since I was like 10 years old, and I still miss the pizza in New York. I dig, you know, the more LA-esque, the sort of Wolfgang Puck style pizzas too.
We also have better Mexican food.
Yes.
Like, far and away.
Oh yeah, way better.
Better Mexican food. A lot of our Indian food is better.
But there's some great Indian food in Manhattan.
But that's definitely in Manhattan.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm still
now
gonna
Case is
nibble a
gonna
bit,
eat
but I'll nibble subtly.
a subtle nibble.
Okay, here we go. Clown College. We're going to learn about worker co-ops. So, first why don't we just start with, let's start real basic and just look for like a Wikipedia, like, worker co-op. Let's get the basic definition.
Is it co-op?
I think that's the proper, or no, because it's short for cooperative, so no.
Right. Wikipedia, worker
Great, yeah.
cooperative.
Let's start here. Shall I?
Yes.
A worker cooperative is a cooperative. Oh, thanks for the cheer, Clappy69.
Clappy.
Much appreciated. A worker cooperative is a cooperative owned and self-managed by its workers. This control may mean a firm where every worker owner participates in decision-making in a democratic fashion, or it may refer to one in which management is elected by every worker owner who each have one vote. And that's an interesting distinction. So I guess the latter is a more extreme version.
Management is elected by every worker owner who each have one vote.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I tend to imagine.
A fully democratic process. This control may mean...
So the first one is democratic fashion, but it's not like fully democratic.
Right,
Because
right,
it's like
right, right.
participating in decision making as opposed to literally having a locked in vote.
Yes. Interesting. So that's the basic definition. Here's all the history. What do you say?
Amazing. So worker cooperatives rose to prominence during the Industrial Revolution as part of the labor movement. So they've been around for a while. As employment moved to industrial areas and job sectors declined, workers began organizing and controlling businesses for themselves. Worker cooperatives were originally sparked by, quote, critical reaction to industrial capitalism and the excesses of the Industrial Revolution. Some worker cooperatives were designed to, quote, cope with the evils of unbridled capitalism and the insecurities of wage labor. The philosophy that underpinned the cooperative movement stemmed from the socialist writings of thinkers including Robert Owen and Charles Fourier. Robert Owen, considered by many as the father of the cooperative movement, made his fortune in the cotton trade, but believed in putting his workers in a good environment with access to education for themselves and their children. These ideas were put into effect successfully in the cotton mills of New Lanark, Scotland. It was here that the first cooperative store was opened. Interesting. Did not know that. Spurred on by the success of this, he had the idea of forming, quote, villages of cooperation, where workers would drag themselves out of poverty by growing their own food, making their own clothes, and ultimately becoming self-governing. He tried to form such communities in Orbiston in Scotland and in New Harmony, Indiana in the United States of America, but both communities failed. Similar early experiments were made in the early 19th century, and by 1830 there were several hundred cooperatives. Dr. William King made Owen's ideas more workable and practical. He believed in starting small and realized that the working classes would need to set up cooperatives for themselves. So he saw his role as one of instruction. He founded a monthly periodical called The Cooperator,
Interesting.
the first edition of which appeared on May 1st, 1828. This gave a mixture of cooperative philosophy and practical advice about running a shop using cooperative principles. And this
Nice.
reminds me of another thing from our discussion yesterday with
Dustin?
Dustin. What was Dustin's screen name?
No strings.
Oh, right, No Strings, yes. And then before that, there was, what, the Coco
The
Hee Hee or
Coco
whatever.
Loco,
Coco Loco
piece
Hee
of
Hee.
shit asshole, yeah.
Yeah, something that I felt, like again, like something I wanted to be more clear about, because he was asking, like, well, who will pay, like, if someone wants to start a business? And I think it's the other thing to keep in mind under market socialism is that basically the only thing to spend money on would be luxuries, because all the basic human necessities would be covered. So, like, if you wanted to start a business, you could go work at someone's cooperative, save up dough, and then start your own thing. Yeah, it would be like easier to start businesses. But what it would require that we don't require now is I think the way we imagine it, the only way to make money would be doing something.
Right.
You would have to work to make money. There would be no option to have passive income.
Right.
And
You have to directly contribute to something.
Yes. So in order to have the capital under that system to start your own thing, you'd have to work on something that's actually valuable to society
Right.
to
Right,
amass
right,
that.
right,
Or I think also it would be good in that system to have government grants as well. But obviously, if it's just government grants, then the response is like, so you're just saying, like a centrally controlled economy. It's like full communism basically at that point.
Right.
So I think it would have to be a mix. But it seems totally workable to me.
So, just philosophically, do you think it would be more productive as a transitional period from capitalism to have universal basic income to cover basic necessities, or just remove the price of basic necessities? Like, what do you think in the context of how we're already operating would be the most feasible shift?
Well, it's a good question. It's a great question because part of me feels, that we already have this system of commerce and distribution with, purchasing and whatnot. So I think there's something to be said for a UBI approach to kind of just stay on what the structures we're dealing with already and, just give people enough to live. Now, as I said earlier, not an economics expert. I believe there are risks there in terms of like inflation and certain things. If you just did
Right.
that.
If everyone has $2,000 a month, rent will be $1 million.
Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly. That like that
Yeah.
that there are ways that a capitalist system might adapt to that toxically. That's why I tend to think that it would be better to and more efficient to take all that out and just like have things provided. Like I think in terms of food, everyone should have access to ingredients.
Yeah, we've talked about this. Like an ingredient store.
An ingredient depot that would be accessible to everyone. And like, so if you wanted, if you were working a job somewhere and you had that extra dough, you could still go, there would still be restaurants. There would still be the option of if you wanted to go spend some of your income to have like a fancy meal cooked for you by other people.
My one true dream.
Right. Always a lovely experience. And also, many people love to do that.
Yeah.
People love to cook and feed people
absolutely.
and provide an ambiance and all these things that make up the dining experience. But generally speaking, so that no one would ever be at threat of being murdered by poverty, you would always have access to the basic fundamentals of food. Because there's nothing there to like... for example, like it makes sense to me like someone might have a different preference of like a brand of potato chip.
Right.
Of like,
right,
I like
right,
the way
right,
this
right,
one
right.
tastes more than another. So I think those kinds of things probably you'd have to keep in stores and they'd still be like luxury items that would be...
Right, because it's a processed food.
Right. But like potatoes, like there are different kinds of potatoes, and I think they should offer different kinds. But there's only
Like a
so
Yukon
many.
Gold
There's
or
only so
russet.
many kinds
Yeah,
of
yeah,
potatoes.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
Potatoes as potatoes should be available.
right? Exactly.
Unprocessed.
And seasonings.
Yeah.
All the basic things, so that if a person wants to just cook for themselves and feed themselves. They can do that, or not even have to cook, because there'd also be like vegetables that could just be eaten raw. And
Totally. And I know your stances on a lot of these, but I'm going to ask you a
Please.
bunch of
Oh, yeah.
because I want
love it.
everyone to know your stances.
Thank you.
So say
That's great.
say you have these food items available free of cost. Two things come to mind. One is then the people who are farming, do they have income for farming, or because they're responsible for doing this basic need, is that a volunteered position? Is my first.
That's a great question. Well, and then a lot of stuff, like when you get into the more granular things, I think there'd have to be a larger cultural conversation with social scientists. There are people who know way more than I do about actual, on the ground society design. So I think a lot of these answers I'm going to give are very open to, I want them to be malleable of like, there's going to be nuance, there's going to be details that we're going to have to work out to answer these questions. And specifically, the question of like, who's doing the farming, I think probably you could just have it that, the farming is a worker co-op.
Yeah.
And that people who like to work outdoors and work with their hands could go there and be, paid a fair wage that they get to democratically have, a say on. And I also understand that there might be needs for farming that perhaps would not be met by the voluntary interest in farming. I do, like, as a general philosophy, I do believe generally that for all the work that has to be done for people to just live on Earth and be fed and safe and healthy, I think that there's more than enough people who want to do all of those jobs, who would enjoy them and like to fill their day with that meaning and that purpose. And I think it's worth acknowledging that, yes, perhaps the numbers wouldn't shake out and you'd need more people to farm than people who would naturally be inclined to that. And I do think there is something to be said for potentially some kind of system where everyone is expected to do a small amount of basically community service.
Right. Which is not a radical idea
No.
by any means. And frankly,
Well, it's what taxes are now, basically.
Frankly,
except it works terribly as a
if
system.
everyone had like a mint garden or something outside,
Right.
that would solve a lot of problems.
Or just for me, if part of the deal of always having access to ingredients, food ingredients, was that like one day a week I go and pick crops for 6 hours, I'd be happy to do that. Personally.
that was the only work you were like required to do.
Yeah,
to,
that you were
to
that
live
you were
within
requi-
this society.
you were required to contribute like one day of work a week to one of those systems that is integral, like food, like health, like housing. You know, maybe you go help build some new houses, you know, or whatever. I think there is a way that could function, and like I said, I think probably just people's natural inclination to want to do something meaningful with their time and feel a sense of fulfillment and purpose in their life. I think there would be enough people who would do it voluntarily. And also, if it was like a math thing, I think you could put out the word of like, you know, again, there'd have to be like very efficient systems of organization to make all of this work, so that the people who are in the positions of managing these systems could see when there were needs coming, like, we don't have enough, you know, farmers working right now, and then put a word out in advance of like, we're running low, like to keep the, what's the word?
Morale?
No, the stock, to keep like the, you know, a proper amount of resources on hand. And like a word could be put out of like, we need more people to, you know, volunteer in these farming operations to make sure everyone eats. Again, I don't think that would really be necessary. I think there's more than enough people who would want to do these things, and get a little extra money to spend on luxury items. And you know, perhaps there were there may need to be other systems in place for it all to function.
No, yeah, you answered that thoroughly.
Nice.
So Clappy69, he had a good question. How do you envision property within this ideal world? Is it purchased or rented? And if property is just provided, is there the option to purchase property outside of what is provided? For example, how would somebody who wants to start a business acquire the property for that business?
Well, yes, under this system, you would still, under market socialism, I think you would still have an element of private property. I believe, even though like we do tend to endorse long-term abolishment of private property, I think the way it would work is that the only way to have capital to buy property would be to work.
Right.
So it would require a certain reworking of the real estate industry, inevitably, because this is one of the biggest issues, I think, with the way the world works today, is that there is no new land. All the land has been discovered and divvied up among real estate brokers, basically, property owners. And that is not to me, that is not a workable, sustainable system for society. There would have to be some kind of redistribution of land. But as it stands, I mean, I think probably the most realistic thing would be to convert, you know, the existing means of production into worker co-ops, where the workers control the means of production, because we already have more than enough means of production to produce everything we need. Really, now at this point, it just has to be maintained or refined, perhaps, if we develop new technologies. So that is a tough one to answer. I will be honest. Of like, it's an issue because a very small number of people currently have a monopoly on all land on Earth, and those power structures can't keep existing. And
They
also
have to be
completely reworked.
demolished.
So there would have to be, I think, some kind of process of property redistribution. And there are dangers there of that being, you know, the question is like, who decides?
Yeah.
and these are good questions, and I think, optimally it would be democratically decided, and you have to acknowledge that sometimes when you leave stuff up to democracy, people make bad choices. So I'm not going to pretend I have a 100% concrete answer for that, and I do think there are ways to work out plans to convert over to a new system.
Yeah, totally.
But that's a very tough one. That is a very tough one because it is, you do have to take property away from people. The issue is, I think the people you have to take property away from have
it's not
way
like you're
too
taking
much.
someone's fucking house.
Exactly.
It's you're taking the giant plot of land with 1 million houses on it that they own.
Yeah, and I can see
You're not taking someone's property. You're taking
yes.
it's like, you know what I mean?
Well, and there's no way to, so in our view, there's no way to ethically earn 7 mansions. And so I get for the individual who currently today is wealthy and owns 7 mansions, that a system that comes in and says, like, you only have 1 mansion now. It feels like I've been robbed.
Of course.
I've been burgled. They've
Your
taken
entire
my
psychology
mansions.
says that it's yours.
And to me, ethically, it's indefensible.
Yeah.
And it is fully defensible to take away 6 out of 7 of a rich guy's mansions.
100%.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think hoarding resources is ethically indefensible. And the only way people hoard resources at the scale that so many capitalists currently do is through exploitation of labor. There's just no other way. So, yeah. None of it's going to be easy.
Yeah, of course.
It must always be acknowledged.
The reason I pulled up adverse possession is because hi, Cheeseburger Merv, and hi, Quenrich.
What's up, Cheeseburger Merv and Quenrich? Welcome.
So, I want to just pull this up to answer his question.
Oh, that's
he asked
interesting.
About adverse possession. So we have a 5 years and payment of taxes on the land, whereas there it's 15.
Oh.
So it says how to claim adverse possession. Generally, there are four elements to a valid adverse possession claim. A hostile claim: the trespasser must either make an honest mistake, such as relying on an incorrect deed, merely occupy the land with or without knowledge that it is private property, or be aware of his or her trespassing. Actual possession: trespasser must be physically present on the land, treating it as his or her own. 3, open and notorious possession: the act of trespassing cannot be secret. Exclusive and continuous possession: the trespasser cannot share possession with others and must be in possession of the land for an unbroken period of time. This is interesting. I actually don't know a lot about this.
Well, yeah, and this is an interesting option, and I've often had moments where like I fantasize about running off the middle of nowhere and just like building a cabin.
Yeah.
And like so it's interesting that this option is available to people, and I think if someone goes and like sits on some land and cultivates it, and and I guess in this case pays the taxes, then yeah, this makes sense to me as a policy to have in place. And I think one of the issues there, though, is like anywhere you're going to find land where you could do that is going to be extremely remote. You're going to be generally far away from other people. And because humans need community, because like we evolved to be communal social animals, and we really like other people at our core, no matter how much they kind of drive us crazy sometimes. It's not really a workable option because it requires you to live in the middle of nowhere. Because lots of time capitalists will say that of like, well, if you don't like it, go build a cabin in the woods, go run away. But obviously, you're asking people to give up the basic what I think is a human right of being able to be around other humans in order to have a property, which is, I think, cruel.
So yeah, and then to respond to what you were saying,
Yes.
Cheeseburger Merv mentioned that sometimes this happens in cities. So now I'm just looking up to see if this happens in somewhere like New York City.
Yeah,
where it's like
I would
$1
think it
billion.
would sometimes. That's why I said generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I'm imagining is like when I drive through
Yeah.
Nevada and it's like fucking nothing.
Yeah, the, like, in, like,
I could build a house
In
here.
the New Mexico desert,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
you just
yeah.
like you chalk off a few square miles.
yeah.
You're
Totally,
like, this is mine now.
totally.
Like, you know, yeah. I think that's the most common way you could do it. But certainly, I think in a city, you could stumble upon, luck out,
Yeah.
find some little plot of land you could work this way.
Yeah. So so this concept was developed early Britain. I didn't know that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean my thing about that too is just though there are enough houses to house unhomed people.
Well, there are enough.
Right?
I think you have to be. There are enough like homes. Like I think you have to include apartments.
Not like a house per
Right.
person.
But there's already enough housing.
housing is what I should have said.
For there's already more, at least in America.
like buildings built to fit.
Yes, there are more empty homes than there are homeless people by
Yes.
a radical margin.
Yes.
And I've read into this more and I think seen some convincing arguments that we still should be building more houses. Mm-hmm. That we still like would benefit
Why?
from more. Well, part of it is just because we're still operating under capitalism for now. That building more houses lowers the cost of houses. Mm-hmm. The more supply, the less you can charge. So the more that there are housing developments, the more that there's competition.
But then perhaps if you decommodify housing,
Right.
there's really no need to make more. I mean, unless there's more people.
Well, there is more just to I think there would still be an argument to make more just in terms of making even more options for people. Because if you're going to decommodify housing, like often when you bring up decommodifying housing, the first question is how the fuck are you going to do that, right?
Right.
And I tend to think of it as a system where what I think would be the most ethical and workable would be to grandfather everyone wherever anyone's currently living. That's your place. Like that would be step one.
Even if like we're renting this apartment?
Yes.
Cool.
Anywhere people live, that's your home now, and you own it. Right?
Oh, sexy.
You fuck over all the real estate investors, but fuck them. They can find a way to do actual work
yeah.
and support themselves. But yeah, you grandfather everybody in, and then you have a system, an organizational system, probably online.
Yeah.
Where all of the homes in the country are cataloged.
Yeah.
And anyone would be able to browse this system, look at available homes. And I should also say, to be clear, that all mega homes, like mansions with like 25 bedrooms, would just be taken out of the system. Again, if you live there already, you're grandfathered in. They're not gonna, I don't think anyone should be kicked out of the home where they're already living.
Like where all their things are. And
Yes,
all that.
and where their family is, their kids are used to that place. I think that would be cruel to kick anyone out of the home where they're already living. So any super rich people who are already in a giant, insane mega house, like they get to keep it for their lifetime. And in terms of this cataloging system, mega houses would be taken out of it because personally, I don't think any person should live in a house with 5 times as many bedrooms as there are people.
You've mentioned that like you like the idea of sort of like an Airbnb type of thing
Yes.
with mansions.
Well,
So
that's
it's like
exactly.
everyone gets a chance to chill
Well,
in the
yes.
mansion.
All the mega houses would be organized in a separate catalog.
Yeah.
Where that people could basically sign up on a list to like have a vacation there. Like I think everyone should have the chance to live a week or two in
a
like an
mansion?
opulent,
In a
for
sexy
funsies, for
mansion?
funsies.
Oh, yeah.
I think a couple weeks for funsies is perfectly ethically
Yeah, yeah,
defensible.
yeah.
But when a person lives their whole life there, I think
Yeah.
it drives people insane. To live in a house that big
Yeah.
because like especially if you're walking around believing like I earned this giant house.
Yeah,
Like you become a crazy person, especially if you have servants
Yeah.
who are like cleaning your toilets.
Well,
you
yeah.
forget that you shit. Like it's just I think it's a recipe for madness and just no good.
Well, yeah, I think any house that requires other people to take care of it for you
Right,
is
exactly.
too much
It's too
for
much.
you.
It's too much.
You don't need it.
If you can't clean your house by yourself, it's probably too big.
yeah.
And That being said, also I think there might be room in that system for like if people want to live in a big house as a group, that maybe some of those could be made available. Like,
Which is what Clappy just said. Yeah, so you can divide that up.
yeah.
Because, like, I know, just as the world exists now, I've had groups of friends that have done that. So it's like 6 people went in and bought a house.
I think that's totally ethically defensible. If
Yeah,
10
yeah.
people want to live in a mansion with 30 bedrooms,
That sounds so fire.
that's fine.
That sounds
I think
so
that's
much
fine. And it would be up to people making those groupings and convincing each other to all live together, and once they actually do it, they might not like it as much as they thought they would. Humans are not always the best at cohabitating, but I think there could be room for that. But to finish my original thought, the catalog system is that basically then all homes would be available to everyone,
Yes.
of a certain reasonable size, and then you could go on either you could just stay where you are if you love it, stay there forever, or if you wanted to move to another area, another state, or even another country, and this system eventually becoming international, you'd be able to just browse in any given area what homes are available.
What are empty at the moment.
Yeah. And if any are like fully available, you could just say like, I want to move there now. And there'd probably, be some kind of like process of just confirming that, approving that, in that system.
How many people are you coming with?
Right. Yeah. Like there'd be some, a little bit of process
Do
there.
you tend to shit on the walls?
Well, not like that wouldn't even, like
It's
that,
right if you
yeah.
own it, then
Well, right. Well,
own
that's.
it.
Well, yeah, and I think that it would be obviously beneficial for there to be accompanied with that a culture of like don't shit on the walls, but the point is that if it was available, you could move right in, and if it wasn't available, you could add yourself to a waiting list of like if this ever does become available, I'd like to be considered to move in there. So if you had like a dream house somewhere. That you could like put yourself on a list of potentially to go on there, and I think probably in that system you could do that to an unlimited extent. You could throw your name on as many places as you want, and whichever one comes up first, you'd be contacted like, hey, you're up on the list. Do you want to move into this house? And if you still did, you could. And if you were like, actually now, I put my name on that list 2 years ago, and I actually like where I am, then you'd say no, and they'd move on to the next person on the list.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty workable general system. Again, there would be a lot of nuance. There'd be a
Yeah.
lot of details to work out. But I think overall that's pretty ethically defensible.
Yeah,
and
I
workable.
think it just sounds so ridiculous. Not that it's a ridiculous idea. It just sounds so ridiculous because it's like how dreamy.
Right.
Like I wish. And the fact that like it's such a sexy idea makes me think like impossible.
I get it. Well, we've been very heavily conditioned by capitalist society to believe that anything that sounds nice is impossible.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it's a good idea, and I'm glad we looked up adverse possession, and curious too how modern co-ops.
An interesting Quenrich squatted an abandoned hospital,
Oh shit.
and after they left, it got torn down and built into luxury apartments that are empty because no one can afford them. Yeah.
Great. Isn't that how it goes? So yeah, I mean, this is like another.
And you
reason
got evicted
why-
by SWAT teams. How exciting!
I know. I wanna. That's
Holy
so,
cow.
Like, as long as you're safe and I'm happy.
Yeah, no, yeah.
That sounds like a fun time if I
Sounds
came
like
out safe.
an adventure.
Yeah.
I've never had SWAT teams do anything.
And the communes being cults debate. I've heard a lot from both ends. I've heard a lot from people in communes who are like, "This isn't a cult. We're having a great time," and I've heard
Oh, yeah, me too.
a lot from people who are not in communes like, "This is a cult. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And perhaps if the only people I've heard it's great from are people who live in communes, there's one of two ways this could go.
Right.
Yes, they're in cults and they're defending their cult, and two, they
telling
know
the truth
because
and-
they're doing it.
Right, you're right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I think that anarchist communes are culty.
Well, a number have been cults.
Yeah.
I
I mean, once they start being like, we have to have sex with goats, then I'm like,
Sure,
"Oh,
right.
culty."
Well, and there's that documentary on Netflix about it's called Wild Wild Country.
Yeah,
about
yeah.
in the 70s the I forget the name of that group that established a whole commune in America, but it was led by a guy from
Oh,
India.
yeah. No, I know who you're talking about.
Why can't I remember his name? But that was a funny situation because in all the testimonials of the people who were there, there's clearly a lot about that commune that worked. like a lot of people clearly very happy. You know, the orgy aspect of the commune, for some people they really liked it. Obviously other people felt like they were kind of coerced into weird sex cult shit. So that's no good. But I think it's funny to me when I was watching that documentary, what really stood out to me is the how I feel like they really sabotage themselves with arrogance, among other things. And that, like, there's a part in the documentary where after the commune is established, like, a bunch of people from the commune, like, march over to the nearest town and are, like, parading through in their, like, matching color outfits, you know, and like there's all these like old like people like on their porches watching like, what is this insanity? And they went and they were like goofing with them and like fucking with them. Like it was this weird thing of, I'm like, why couldn't you just be nice?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just go be nice to those people? And they might have wanted to like join your commune or start their own commune. And instead you came in like arrogant pricks. Like, we're so cool with our commune. Look at these fucking idiots.
Yeah.
And then they all hated you. And then this local community, like, they banded together to get rid of you.
Yeah.
And then it's a war. And then like the cult sent people to go to like local salad bars and like put germs in the food. And there was like a breakout of food poisoning. Like, it became this crazy war. And I was
That's
like, could you just not be fucking dickheads? And that's just a human thing.
It could still lead to decisions based on discrimination. Some people are inevitably going to end up in worse living conditions than others, allowing class separation. So, yeah, I mean, it depends.
To some extent, but I think
depends.
the spectrum of difference wouldn't be... Like if someone was living, like, if it was, like, a horrible home, it should just be condemned and torn down. You know, if anyone, if we were shifting over to the system, anyone who's currently living in like a cockroach
infested,
rat den would just move into
yeah.
one of the nice empty places immediately. Now, of course, there still would be a spectrum of quality in houses, but the thing is, like, I think like different strokes for different folks. There are people who like to live in small places. There are people who strongly prefer to live in a small place, or to live in a more industrial space. Like there's all kinds of tastes in homes, and I think if the system was really open and everyone could move about to empty spaces as they please, generally everyone would end up in like either a place they really like, or at least a fairly nice place where they are never going to be homeless and, you know, starving on the street.
Yeah.
And like it seems to me the worst case scenario is you could end is like, some people could go and like want to find a place and they don't love any of the places that are available and they have to settle for something that's like less than their dream. But I think that's a far more defensible approach than, you know, people dying on the street.
Yeah, 100%. And like also you have people like that exist in the world. I'm not saying either of us are representative of half and half of the population. But
No.
there you have people like Casey who are more homebodies, who like to spend time like either hanging out with yourself or you know, looking at media or things like that, like in your house. And then you have people like me who I am not a homebody and I have never felt like any place is home ever, and I've lived in big and small places. And so someone like me would probably be one of those people that hops around constantly. I probably wouldn't last more than a year anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's just how I am. So
That'd be great.
it wouldn't matter to me to have a small spot, because it'd be more like, okay, now I have a small spot in Arizona, now I have a little spot in, you know, New Mexico.
You'd be far more interested in the actual spot where you're living as much as you'd be interested in what's around it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really give a shit about the house. And I know, like, obviously, once again, I'm not representative of, like, half the population, but I think that there are a lot of people like me who just be like, I don't give a shit where it is, as long as I have a roof and a fridge and a stove and a bathroom, I'm happy.
And imagine this happening in a system where all your basic needs are covered. So if you go out and work at some co-op, all the money you make is fun money.
That's just fun money
So,
for you know, craft cocktail.
You could spend every night at the local watering hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs your place to be nice?
Yeah.
For you, for your preferences.
Cheeseburger Murph.
Oh, you know me, I'm a real nibbler.
But so anyone just joining, Casey's my brother, not my husband. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, no, and I just think there is such a variance in the general human population of our attachment to living spaces as extensions of ourselves. Like, I have no concept of a living space being an extension of myself. Casey's seen places where I've lived, the walls are white.
Yeah.
Like, I do not care. I don't decorate. I put a bed in there and, like, my clothes on the floor, and that's about it.
Yeah. Whereas I walk in a room in my house, and like if one action figure is moved an inch from where it was,
Yeah.
I'm like, did somebody touch my action figures?
Yeah. I literally bumped into one of Casey's action figures once. I moved it like an inch, and he calls down the stairs, Zoe. I was like,
I did not sound like that.
Zoe, excuse me.
No, I did not sound like that.
Zoe.
Zoe.
No, he was like, hey Zoe, did you do you know?
Oh,
if
cool,
someone- yeah. No, I appreciate the devil's advocacy.
Clappy 69. Oh,
And
please.
Cheeseburger
Yeah.
Murph, you didn't know that Casey and I were brother and sister? Did you think we were a couple?
Oh yeah, no, we're brother and sister. Zoe's gay, so.
I'm very gay.
No
no boys allowed.
no boys at all for Zoe. But yeah, Clappy 69. I love your asking questions and
No, this
pushing
is what
back.
clown college is.
This is what it's all about. It's a conversation.
Oh, we thought we were
Not
besties.
just a lecture.
Yeah. I mean, true, but
Oh, got
also brother and sister.
Yeah, we are besties too.
We
Yeah,
are both Katsarises.
We're sibling besties.
Sibesties, if you will.
Sebesties. Bestiblings.
Bestibla. I like that better.
better.
Did you just say it's better?
Yes.
I'm done.
From a linguistic aesthetic perspective, it's better.
Go fuck yourself. Anyways, so we're Sebesties, and but yeah, so I just think it's so important to acknowledge that when people say like, oh, but humanity is doomed to fail in a
Right.
system like this because humans are just like this. Humans
Right.
want better stuff, and there is so much variance in the things that humans care about. When you really look at basic human values, it almost always stems down to I need to eat food, I need a roof, and I need a warm toasty blankie in the winty, and that's about it.
Well, yeah, I've often said the answer to the question of the philosophical question of are humans intrinsically good or intrinsically evil? The answer is humans are intrinsically hungry, thirsty,
And horny.
Horny.
Yeah. Humans are intrinsically
Sleepy.
honey.
Not to erase asexuals. Obviously, there are some people who aren't ever horny and must be relaxing.
Yeah.
But
Me. I'm never horny.
Yeah, generally speaking, like humans just have needs, and when humans are deprived of needs, we behave the worst. But when our needs are generally met, we're an intrinsically cooperative species, and this is a big thing, because the guy we talked to yesterday, he was pushing this line that's very popular among capitalists of like, oh, this is just human nature. Like humans are just like this.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people who make that
a
argument.
lot of people believe that. And I would say, first of all, evolutionarily speaking, the thing that allowed us to conquer the planet was our sense of community and cooperation. Humans working together is what makes humans what we are. And it's interesting, something else that's sort of in the cultural firmament, both certainly in the Western world, is the novel Lord of the Flies. And many people, I think, walk around thinking like that is a very accurate representation of reality.
Well, it's written by a right winger, baby.
The novel it's a good book, but it was written by a right winger, someone who was politically right wing, and it has a very sort of misanthropic view on humanity of like, oh, these boys get isolated on this island, they pretty quickly like turn on each other and start fighting over power and killing each other, and et cetera, et cetera. But the funny thing is, there actually is a true story from history where a boat of English schoolboys got stranded on a remote island. There's something that actually happened in reality, and funnily enough, in reality, not in a book that some right-wing guy wrote, in reality, when like months later, I think it was months, a rescue party found them. I'm having a cramp in my ribs.
No.
After a few months of them being isolated on the island, a rescue party found them. And what they found is that all the boys had like worked out a little system of society. They were all working together. They were all happy and like eating coconuts and like chilling out and playing games. And even one of the boys had broken his leg. And the other boys like set the bone and made a splint for him. Like when they were left,
Sweet boys.
when these children were left to their own devices, they created like a socialist paradise. It's really, I am very much of the belief that if we were not born into capitalism and born into capitalist conditioning, brought up in capitalist conditioning, we wouldn't be as much of fucking dickheads as we are as a people right now. That this is a system that incentivizes dickheadery and disincentivizes generosity, kindness, and understanding. So I think that's always good to remind people when people bring out this talking point of like, it's just human nature and capitalism is just a direct one-to-one mirror reflection of our hearts as a species.
It's not.
It's not. It's really fucking not.
It's not.
And if you haven't read the book Capitalist Realism, check it out because it deals with a lot of this stuff as well, and it's actually free online. You can just get a PDF.
Of course it is.
Yeah, though I bought a copy, but and if you afford it, I'd say support the author Mark Fisher. But if you can't afford it, go read the PDF.
And to answer your question, Cheeseburger Merv Casey is the oldest
Yes,
by a little chunk.
I'm 38.
I'm
and
27.
You're 27.
I'm just
11 years your senior.
My mommy milkers are so massive. I look 50.
What?
I don't know. I thought it was funny in my head, and then it started coming out of my mouth, and I realized it was stupid.
I got the tits of a 50-year-old.
That's literally what I wanted to say. And I was trying to censor myself, and I actually made it worse. You know, the censored version of Wet Ass Pussy for a while was Wet and Gushy, which is worse. It was another example of censoring making something worse. But yeah, I got the tits of a 50-year-old. Wow! Thank you. You should hang out with me in real life because you will not agree.
You better all think I'm the oldest. What, did I go bald for nothing?
That's good though, because means you look young.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
Thank you, Icelandic jeans.
I think what I was gonna say. And wait, hey, screw you. I'm 20. I'm in my 20s. But anyway, what I was gonna say is, yeah. Shit, what was I gonna say? Oh, I think we should do a completely separate clown college on this. But human nature has been debated in early philosophy at great length. There are different philosophers that come from different areas, different time periods, East versus West, etc., all have pretty different ideas of what make up human nature. So for a capitalist to be like, oh, it's just how people are. I'm like, yeah, no. This has been so widely debated between the greatest minds of our time.
Yeah.
And they couldn't even come to a conclusion.
Totally. And we could do a devoted segment around this, though I think it also very much ties into the subject of worker co-ops. Because one of the biggest reasons, I mean, you heard it if you watched yesterday, our debate with that guy.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons people who are skeptical of worker co-ops give for them not working is that, like, if you gave everyone a vote, the workers would just make everything stupid, you know, and that they'd all turn on it. They'd be totally selfish. They'd just be like, well, I think I should make the most money because I like me. You know?
Yeah.
And again, we'll get more in depth as we, you know, read about more specific co-ops. But again, from my general understanding right now, that's not what happens. What happens is all the people who work there, they get together and they discuss, you know, what the company is, how it functions, what kind of money it brings in, and all the different jobs that people do, and they work it out and they figure out what they feel to be a fair a set of tiers of payment for people in different positions. They all agree on it. They vote on it. They vote on the supervisor, and then they get to work. And they
Easy
seem to
peasy,
love it. And
lemon squeezy.
again, we'll get into more, but like every time there's a study about like workplace satisfaction, worker co-ops blow everywhere else out of the water. Like if you care about workers having a nice life, which I do, and it seems most capitalists don't at all, but if you do, then worker co-ops are the answer because that's where employees are happiest.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest, and we mentioned this earlier in stream, but I'd like to speak during the segment too. We sort of got down to the biggest philosophical difference between our views and the person we were talking to's views, is that we view workers as equally as important as bosses.
Yeah, well, that
as
we see
humans.
all humans are humans with equal value in the cosmic scheme.
Yes. I don't think anything that is inherent to just a person's existence in the world makes them any more or less valuable than another person.
Even if they are some super genius, because if you want to morally justify a super genius using their intellect to dominate other people and amass a team of workers who have to serve them, they have to spend the finite time and energy of their life serving them. If you think it's morally defensible for someone to use their birth-given intellect to dominate like that, then you should also be okay with people using their birth-given physical strength to dominate. And for some reason, capitalists don't. For some reason, they draw that philosophical line of like, oh, it's fine for me to use my brain to trick people and con people and manipulate people into serving me and buying my stuff, which in many cases is not even good stuff. That's all fine. But if you come in and use your muscles to punch them and take their emeralds or whatever, that's terrible. How could you do that?
Yeah.
How could you use physical violence? And that's the thing, like intellectual violence is fine in our general capitalist moral system, and I think that's fucking insane.
and obviously, like, our philosophy is none of it.
Right, yeah. The
None
best
of it
thing,
unless necessary.
The best thing is, the whole point of civilization, in my view, is to make the world fairer than a state of nature.
Yeah.
And if a civilization falls short of even the fairness of a state of nature, because in a state of nature, you're born, you have whatever land you're on, you can pick from the fruit trees, you can hunt little local animals. Like, there is a freedom that exists in a state of nature that I think civilization is under a moral responsibility to match or exceed.
Yeah.
And if it's not achieving, and instead it's a system where just like the large majority of people are wage slaves to a minority that gets to ride around in speedboats and yachts and live in mansions and get endless,
And eat
oral
caviar
sex
all
from
day.
escorts and whatever else,
The life.
it's not morally defensible.
Yeah. And Clappy69 said we were having a good debate until January 6th came up. So just for when I post this later, the person we talked to yesterday, we were talking about Elon Musk, and then I don't know how he like segued in, but he was like, the demonstrators on January 6th are getting persecuted by the government. Casey and I both went, oh no! And yes, it's funny, I was telling Casey on our walk today, I was like, I noticed that when someone is stupid enough in my head, my brain automatically stops hearing them. So I would notice, like, towards the end of it, like, I would tune out for, like, a minute. And then I'd tune back in and be like, what are you guys talking about? And, like, I literally just, like, I stopped hearing. As soon as it was, like, we got super into conspiracies, I was just
It got
like,
very silly.
I was like, I can't hear.
We went to
So
conspiracy
that's something
theory
I want to
land.
work on, is being able to hear people
Keep
who I
listening,
think have
even
really bad takes.
Even when it starts to sound really dumb and crazy, keep listening. You should still listen to people.
I was doing my best, but yeah, my brain was like, you don't need to hear this.
Yeah. And thank you, Replica Fox, and thank you, Cheeseburger Merv.
Wow, honestly, I love how it was like, yeah, because Zoe is so mature. And I was like, no, you can literally say it's because I look like an old hag. It's okay. You can be honest.
You have a very youthful look, Zoe.
I know, I get ID'd everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Especially with the masks.
I get if I wear like a baseball cap and cover up my bald head, I get ID'd sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
I get ID'd everywhere, and I'm in California with a New York identification card. So I've gotten several times, like, people believing that my ID is fake because it's out of state.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I've been 21 for 6 years, please.
Please. And oh yeah, and Elon
Really?
Musk
Fox,
sex
you're so
tape.
young.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I mean, young in the grand scheme of life. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I were still that age.
And yes, an Elon Musk sex tape would be worth its weight in gold at
An
least.
Elon Musk sex tape. I don't know if I'd want to watch it.
I'd have to see at least a little bit, out of pure morbid curiosity.
I'd want to know how
Like-
big it is, and then I'd leave.
It would be like the exact same reason I had to watch some of the Dustin Diamond sex tape.
There, what?
Yeah.
That exists?
Which he put out.
Like on purpose?
Yeah, Screech from Saved by the Bell did a sex tape in an attempt to jumpstart his career.
He was like, here's
And
my dongle.
leaked it.
Look,
if I recall correctly how this happened.
I mean, is it a kind of good move? Sure. Like, I know.
Well, it
I
worked
know,
for Kim Kardashian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If Kim Kardashian can come out of a
It
sex
can be a
tape.
great PR move, but I think people, Kim Kardashian and Ray J have the advantage of being seen as sex symbols. Like Screech, not as much. God bless him.
A celebrity sex tapes. What a funny thing. We should do a clown college on it.
So much to
But
learn
I
there.
do want to, because a lovely tangent. Happy we had it. I do want to just read about the modern worker co-ops while we're on the sort
Yeah.
of,
Oh,
human nature part.
Yeah, now
of
that we've
this.
talked about human nature and how that relates to labor and company structures, let's talk about modern movement.
Do you want to read this? Because I'm nervous about pronouncing this word
Sure,
right here.
sure.
So I just don't want to make. I don't want to make a fool of myself. So I'm going to have Casey read this paragraph.
Modern movement. The first successful cooperative organization was the consumer-owned Rockdale Society of
I believe
Equitable
that.
Pioneers. I believe that's, I don't know for sure. Established in England in 1844, the Rockdale Pioneers established the Rockdale Principles on which they ran their cooperative. This became the basis for the development and growth of the modern cooperative movement. As the mechanization of the Industrial Revolution was forcing more and more skilled workers into poverty, these tradesmen decided to band together to open their own stores selling food items they could not otherwise afford. With lessons from prior failed attempts at cooperation in mind, they designed the now famous Rockdale Principles, and over a period of 4 months, they struggled to pool £1 sterling per person for a total of 28 pounds of capital. On 21st December 1844, they opened their store with a very meager selection of butter, sugar, flour, oatmeal, and a few candles. Interesting. Within 3 months, they expanded their selection to include tea and tobacco, and they were soon known for providing high-quality, unadulterated goods. The international organization representing worker cooperatives is CICOPA. It has 2 regional organizations, CECOP, CICOPA Europe, and CICOPA Americas.
E-I-E-I-O.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I just really quick want to read this. This relies on too much on references.
You're too kind in the chat.
What are they saying? Oh,
Flattered.
Yeah. I think they're talking about Elon Musk, though.
Oh, got it. Good. Well, yeah, I don't know if he's hung.
Unless you're talking about Casey.
Yeah. If you're talking about me, you might be onto something. But I don't know. Elon feels like a guy who's compensating for something to me.
I always assume. I say my rule is, do you know, I don't know if you have this outside of America, but we have like left turn arrows that turn when you can make a left. I always say the amount of time between the left arrow turning on, and the time the guy behind you honks. There is a direct correlation between penis size and that amount of time. So, like, if it's immediately after the light turns and the guy honks, micro penis.
Yeah.
If there's a long period of time, he's hung. That is my philosophy. Quote me.
Because he's just sitting there thinking about his
He's
big
just
dick.
sitting there thinking about how giant his penis is. But when he's
And
got
then he's
like a tiny
oh, wait,
little...
the light changed. Oh.
Yeah.
Beep.
Beep.
Sorry, I was thinking about something.
But anyway, the Rockdale Principles are a set of ideals for the operation of cooperatives. They were first set out in 1844 by the Rockdale Society of Equitable Pioneers in Rockdale, England, and have formed the basis for principles on which cooperatives around the world continue to operate. The implications of the Rockdale Principles are a focus of study in cooperative economics.
Can you open that in a new tab? We can look at that.
What?
Cooperative economics.
Oh, yeah, please.
Hold down.
No, I'm stupid. I just...
Hold down control. I think, right? And click. Yep, there you go. Just we can go to that next.
Whoa.
Yeah.
New life. The original Rockdale Principles were officially adopted by the International Cooperative Alliance in 1937 as the Rockdale Principles of Cooperation. Updated versions of the principles were adopted by the ICA in 1966 as the Cooperative Principles, and in 1995 as part of the Statement on the Cooperative Identity. Interesting. Voluntary and open member anti-discrimination.
Read the voluntary and open membership.
The first of the Rockdale Principles states that cooperative societies must have an open and voluntary membership. According to the ICA statement on the cooperative identity, cooperatives are voluntary organizations open to all persons able to use their services and willing to accept the responsibilities of membership without gender, social, racial, political, or religious discrimination, which this goes on to continue. To discriminate socially is to make a distinction between people on the basis of class or category. That's a good definition. Examples of social discrimination include racial, how would you say that?
Casteist.
Casteist, okay.
Relating
caste,
to a caste
yeah.
system. Yeah.
I didn't know if it was pronounced differently. Religious, sexual orientation, disability, and ethnic discrimination. To fulfill the first Rockdale principle, a cooperative society should not prevent anyone willing to participate from doing so on any of these grounds. However, this does not prohibit the cooperative from setting reasonable and relevant ground rules for membership, such as residing in a specific geographic area or paying a membership fee to join, so long as all persons meeting such criteria are able to participate if they so choose.
Sure, sounds good.
Motivations and rewards. Given the voluntary nature of cooperatives, members need reasons to participate. Each person's motivations will be unique and will vary from one cooperative to another, but they will often be a combination of the following. Financial. Some cooperatives are able to provide members with financial benefits.
And so to be clear, under the market socialism that we talk about, that would be the primary. Like, there still would be currency. There still would be, getting paid for work. It just would be the only things that would be for sale would be luxury stuff. And all the basics.
Like fun toys.
Provided. Yeah. Like action figures.
Or for me, craft cocktails and meals cooked by other people.
Yes. And the action figures would be made under far more humane democratic conditions, which would make them nicer. Ethical.
Quality of life, serving the community through a cooperative because doing service makes one's own life better is perhaps the most significant motivation for volunteering.
Well, that's always there. I mean, everywhere. Like, and that's another thing. Like capitalists, I notice a lot of time. I mean, staunch, very passionate capitalists. They tend to think that people are generally just very lazy. I think this is another example of projection. Because I think that if your dream is to have like a whole team of people working for you and then taking the majority of the value of their labor every month, like you're pretty lazy.
Yeah.
You sound pretty fucking lazy. But I think the truth is about people is I think people love to work on something that so long as they feel it has meaning. I think if there if we did like public works programs much like FDR did in the early 20th century, I think people would be stoked. I mean, I know if it was like, hey, you could come like work on building this bridge, and if I could like go work a day a week on the local bridge, and then when it's done, I could like tell people I helped build that bridge, and could like then driving my grandkids over the bridge and be like, your grandpa helped build this bridge. Like it's like, there's great stuff that comes out of that that is not a financial reward. Yeah.
Giving back. Many people have in some way benefited from the work of a cooperative and volunteer to give back. Altruism. Some volunteer for the benefit of others.
Sure.
And a sense of duty. Some see participation in community as a responsibility that comes with citizenship. In this case, they may not describe themselves as volunteers.
Sure.
So,
and
I think, like, especially, I think in the context of the pandemic, a lot of people who were not required to remain at work and were able to stay home during the stay home time I was one of these people.
I was also one of those
I got laid
lucky
off.
people.
I got laid off and luckily qualified for unemployment.
I was in a job that could work from home, working on a TV show.
And after about a year passed, because I wasn't really able to get jobs while it was still bad because I have really bad asthma, and bad.
Yeah.
And I'm a smoker. I'm a stupid idiot. But I
Become a pothead, Zoe.
after about the first
Please.
6 months or so, I noticed I had already gained a very significant amount of weight, and my depression was the worst it had like ever been. And I realized there was this like very weird missing piece of me feeling like I'm contributing nothing. And I started to think, oh, that's just because of capitalism, and I my self-worth is attached to my ability
Your
to
productivity,
work.
right.
And then I like sat with it for another fucking year, and I came to realize
Some time to reflect.
no, it's I'm not contributing anything of import to me, like
Right.
to anything. And like this right now, I'm not making money doing this unless everyone subscribe.
Yeah.
But
We will soon.
Well, yeah.
We're making a little money now, but we're going to make a lot more.
We made enough for a hefty grocery trip.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who supported us.
Yeah,
so
thank you
far.
for that hefty grocery trip,
Yeah.
and we look forward to many more. And I'm not making money doing this, but this feels like impactful. Like I'm enjoying myself. It's something I'm good at.
Right.
And I'm meeting really cool people. So it's like that is filling that void, and it has nothing to do with me like working and making money.
Yeah.
So there's really a distinction between feeling like you're fulfilling a sense of purpose, a sense of duty, or a sense of needing to be a part of your community versus needing to work and that being attached to your self-worth. There's
yeah.
two distinct psychological things going on there.
Totally, and it reminds me of like in my situation, like I was very lucky in terms of I got into like a good gig right before the pandemic happened. Like before that, I was doing Lyft driving. I would have been so fucked. And so I was lucky in that regard, and also lucky in like got support from like grants and stuff for the pandemic. So really, if I just wanted to be lazy, I truly could have just like not done anything for this entire year. I could have just lived off savings and stayed at my place and done whatever I wanted every day. But the issue is I'd already had a little time to do that being in lockdown, and I was like, this is getting boring. Like
I did it for longer than you did, and I was suicidal.
At first it was like great, because especially when I was closer to the whole Lyft driving experience, because that was a nightmare, and I was so exhausted and overworked and depressed and frightened all the time that just being able to like sit at home and hop on Zoom for my TV job was like amazing. It was like, oh, thank God. And then some time went, and the TV job, that the season wrapped up, and there was just like, okay, now what? And instead of just sitting around and doing nothing for a year, which I could have done, I spent the money to invest in something that could actually make more money, and also can have an impact, to give me something to do where I feel like I'm actually, like having an impact and serving something. In this case, what I think are very positive, revolutionary ideas. Because while we talk a lot about, we try to be pragmatic. We try to speak to actual, policies and politically scientific stuff. And I think at the end of the day, what we're really pushing for is much less a political shift than it is a spiritual shift.
Oh, yeah.
Because the truth is, even under capitalism as it currently exists, if one could just wave a magic wand and make everyone not an asshole, it would be fine. Like if billionaires were actually generous, if billionaires actually cared about their fellow human in any authentic way, everything would be fine.
They wouldn't be billionaires.
Right, they wouldn't be billionaires. Yes. But if it was, if it was a sudden thing that happened now, magically, like capitalism could be totally humane. The issue is, as we discussed earlier, that there are all these built-in incentives to make people embrace their worst inclinations and ignore their best inclinations. So that's why a big part of why I think doing this kind of thing is so important, and engendering conversations and And, you know, on the one hand, very much standing up for what we believe in. We're not interested in backing down and making compromises the way we feel liberal folks often do in politics. We're going to stand strong for what we believe is the right thing for humanity. And we also want to build bridges where we can and foster greater understanding between people, because I think really the understanding is going to be the salvation, not laws.
We want to build bridges literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just such a... Why it's so important that we're doing something like talking about worker co-ops is because of how disheartening it is to have a conversation like we had yesterday, where not only did this person not think these existed,
Right.
but that
They were a pipe dream.
that they were a pipe dream, and that, like, nobody's gonna ever go for that, and if they do, they're gonna fuck everyone over.
And they must be hippies.
I really, that is so disheartening that you have such a negative view of what people actually care about. So
It's misanthropy.
it's so
Misanthropy.
sad. It's so sad.
It is
like,
sad.
like,
Well, because that guy's not Did you hear that guy last night? He's not a happy guy. Did he sound happy? He sounded like he lives in this world of, like, workers are disgruntled, everyone's lazy, and I'm just trying to do my thing, and the woke left is trying to take my business from me. It's like, God, what a horrible
well,
way
he
to
said
live.
all the people complaining about bad working conditions at Tesla or
And
SpaceX.
yeah.
It was a result of when workers are fired, they become disgruntled.
Right,
And I'm like,
like
so you're assuming
automatically.
everyone who's ever said anything bad was fired on bad terms? Like, that's such a grand assumption.
Yeah, and he gave himself away right at the beginning when he said, like, I believe in Elon. It was
Yeah.
entirely
I
it's just,
believe
it's
in
just
Elon,
faith. He's just emotionally attached to Elon being a hero, and no other fact matters to him.
We don't need an Iron Man, y'all.
No, we really don't.
So this is the Rockdale Principles and Cooperative Economics. Oh, look at this little thing.
Did we look at all the Rockdale Principles?
Oh no,
No, there's more.
I'm a stoopy. I'm like,
Okay.
more reading. I don't wanna.
Okay, I'll read.
So we start at career experience is what we left off at. So.
Right. So, Democratic member control. The second of the Rockdale Principles states that cooperative societies must have democratic member control. According to the ICA statement on the cooperative identity, quote, cooperatives are democratic organizations controlled by their members who actively participate in setting their policies and making decisions. Men and women serving as elected representatives are accountable to the membership. In primary cooperatives, members have equal voting rights, one member, one vote. And cooperatives at other levels are also organized in a democratic manner. Oh, well, we got a citation needed there, so perhaps there's more to this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Isn't that funny, Clappy69? How capitalists always do that. They're like, under communism, there'll be mass starvation. And it's like,
There's mass starvation already.
8 million
Look out the
people.
window, buddy.
8 million people, I believe, is the number of people who die every year from starvation on Earth. Capitalism is failing as a system of distribution because there's more food than there are hungry people. It's just, well, why isn't it getting to them? Because they didn't work right.
Stupid. It's succeeding in what it sets out to do and failing
Right.
in making the world an okay place for people to fucking live in.
Well, exactly, because capitalism wants there to always be an impoverished underclass, because then you have an eager pool of workers to pull from whenever you want some. And under a market socialist system, if an employer was a dickhead the way Elon Musk was, everyone could just walk away from him. Everyone just go like, you know what? I'm just going to go home. Bye, Elon. Have fun with your insanity. It's just delicious to even think about that.
I know. Every time we talk about this shit, I'm like,
Just thinking about, just imagining how his ego would deflate in the face of like all his workers being like, no, we're not going to do anything for you anymore.
well, that's the thing.
And suddenly he was
too.
just who he actually is, just
Yeah.
some fucking dickhead. And he couldn't entertain those fantasies anymore of being like super, Yummy.
Delicious. But yeah, that's the thing too, because I know when I play devil's advocate with myself when I make a point, and I say things like sociologically, so many crimes are committed because people are impoverished, then why on the other hand are like rich people committing worse crimes?
Right.
Rich people have this sense of power because of the necessity of money within our society. If you eliminated that even that sense of assholiness from the rich would stop.
It would at least decrease.
Well, yes, stop
Yeah.
is hyperbolic, but
Yeah,
it would become so much less. It wouldn't be as powerful to be as wealthy.
Right,
Because
exactly.
you wouldn't have power over people's literal ability to stay alive.
Exactly.
So it would eliminate.
No one would have to be nice to you because you're rich. That's the thing. All these billionaire
Yeah.
guys, they are surrounded by sycophants.
Oh yeah.
Like, that is the standard. Most people they encounter on a day-to-day basis, they're employees or other business, owners who want to make deals with them and keep on good terms with them. Like, no one is being honest with them ever, pretty much.
Yeah.
And under a market socialist system, like, everyone could just be honest, and they could just say like wow, you suck, and then they couldn't amass that sense of, or at least not the same sense of godhood that a capitalist can now, a billionaire. Because everyone they deal with is afraid of them. Everyone's like, please don't fire me.
Yeah.
Or please make a deal with me.
Yeah.
And all that sense of power would evaporate, and that would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're watching Better Call Saul now, and the lawyer thing where you're like trying to get a client that like has a bigger crime, so you'll make more money off of it. I'm
Right.
like,
Oh yeah, the
scary.
whole, the economics of the legal system are a real fucking nightmare.
Spooky. Good.
Okay, so member economic participation. Member economic participation is one of the defining features of cooperative societies and constitutes the third Rockdale principle in the ICA's statement on the cooperative identity. According to the ICA, cooperatives are enterprises in which members contribute equally to and democratically control the capital of their cooperative. At least part of that capital is usually the common property of the cooperative. Members usually receive limited compensation, if any, on capital subscribed as a condition of membership. And so obviously, again, this is very much speaking to like traditional co-ops.
Well, this is the original
Yeah.
Scotland 1800s.
Yeah, like where it got started. And now that there are way more modern models where...
Right, which we didn't get up to in the
which we're not
original
up to
one
yet, but where financial compensation is very much the norm. And it's just that since they don't have, shareholders or an all-powerful CEO who can never be unseated, everyone gets paid more fairly. It's just the difference between like a CEO who makes like 500 times as much as the lowest worker. Like I think in most worker co-ops, it's more like they make like maybe 10 times as much. And so there's still the person at the top is making the most money. It's just not an obscene differential.
Right.
So at least members usually receive limited compensation. Yeah. Members allocate surpluses for any or all of the following purposes: developing their cooperative, possibly by setting up reserves, part of which at least would be indivisible, benefiting members in proportion to their transactions with the cooperative, and supporting other activities approved by the membership. This principle, in turn, can be broken down into a number of constituent parts. Democratic control. The first part of this principle states that members contribute equally to and democratically control the capital of their cooperative. At least part of that capital is usually the common property of the cooperative. This enshrines democratic control over the cooperative and how its capital is used.
Interesting.
Limitations on member compensation and appropriate use of surpluses. And surplus was the word I was trying to think of earlier. For the stock you have
Surpluses.
on
Yeah.
hand, The second part of the principle deals with how members are compensated for funds invested in a cooperative and how surpluses should be used. Unlike for-profit corporations, cooperatives are a form of social enterprise. Given this, there are at least three purposes for which surplus funds can be used or distributed by a cooperative. This again, members usually receive limited compensation, if any, on capital subscribed as a condition of membership. Developing their cooperative. Well, this I kind of already
We
said
already
this.
read this. Yeah.
Autonomy and independence. The fourth of the Rockdale principles states that cooperative societies must be autonomous and independent. According to the ICA statement on the cooperative identity, quote, cooperatives are autonomous self-help organizations controlled by their members. If they enter into agreements with other organizations, including governments, or raise capital from external sources, they do so on terms that ensure democratic control by their members and maintain their cooperative autonomy. Education, training, and information. The fifth of the Rockdale Principles states that cooperative societies must provide education and training to their members and the public. According to the ICA's statement on the cooperative identity, quote, cooperatives provide education and training for their members, elected representatives, managers, and employees so they can contribute effectively to the development of their cooperatives. They inform the general public, particularly young people and opinion leaders, about the nature and benefits of cooperation. Cool. That's basically just work training.
Concern for yeah.
Cooperation among cooperatives. The sixth of the Rockdale Principles states that cooperatives cooperate with each other. According to the ICA statement on the cooperative identity, quote, cooperatives serve their members most effectively and strengthen the cooperative movement by working together through local, national, regional, and international structures. Concern for community. The seventh of the Rockdale Principles states that cooperative societies must have concern for their communities. According to the ICA statement on the cooperative identity, cooperatives work for their sustainable development of their communities through policies approved by their members. We've got a few citations needed here, so this might not be the most perfectly accurate, but it's a good, I think, overview of these Rockdale Principles.
I think no one's trying to like pull the wool over my head over the Rockdale Principles.
So that's obviously the philosophical foundations of this movement. And now I think let's look at...
I'm answering a question for Dad really quick.
Got it.
He asked me about rooms and...
because they're coming to visit. Yeah.
No. He's asking me about the number of bedrooms before it becomes obscene. And I said, I don't know, 3 rooms per person, maybe 5.
I think 3 rooms per person is pretty...
It's like enough.
Is enough.
Enough. Like, if one person moved into a 3-bedroom apartment, that's big.
I think you're good with 3 bedrooms. I think you're chilling.
Like, if you really want to, like, stretch it out, I think 5. Like if
maybe
you
really
you could
justify 5.
Like, if you're like I'm a yoga teacher, I need, like, a yoga room, and then I have, like, an office.
Or, like, I have a cold yoga room and a hot yoga room.
Yeah, and
like,
then, like,
maybe.
an office to do my paperwork, the room that I sleep in, and then, like, I guess a TV
Even then,
room.
I don't know what
Even
to
that's
do.
pretty obscene.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that other room.
Yeah.
Unnecessary.
It seems excessive to me.
No one human needs access.
And again, it's not just about excess, it's about the impact on a person's mental health.
Yeah.
Again, like, I don't, like, if you live in this massive place, and again, if you also have servants, which most people who live in massive places do, it blinds you to your own basic humanity. And that nobody does it alone. No man is an island. You cannot live a life truly independently. It's not a thing. We are all tied to each other from womb to tomb. Like, we really are.
So this is very similar to what we just read.
Just a bit more in-depth,
This is giving
a lot of
history on
citations.
people's names and citations and things like that. Cooperative feudalism versus...
Federalism.
Sorry. Federalism. I knew it said that. I don't know why I said feudalism. Versus, or did I? Cooperative individualism.
Oh, I'd like to read this.
Yeah, actually, this is interesting.
A major historical debate in cooperative economics has been between cooperative federalism and cooperative individualism. In an Owenite village of cooperation, or a commune, the residents would be both the producers and consumers of its products. However, for cooperative enterprise other than communes, the producers and consumers of its products are 2 different groups of people, and usually only one of these groups is given the status of members or co-owners. So I think what we're endorsing is the latter.
The cooperative individualism.
Yes, for now. Even though we have issues with individualism as an overall philosophy, again, like, it's a question of what, or for us, it's a question of what is the most realistic that we could actually shift to from the current capitalist model. And I think trying to isolate it all into, like, every co-op is only serving their local community is not realistic with the current globalized system we have. And also, I think maybe just not even the best, like... I think there are plenty of scenarios where it would be better to, get a certain thing from another area other than your local area. depending on what the thing is. So yeah, this in turn led to a debate between the. Sorry, you scrolled down.
Yeah, so the two different modes is where we were. We can define
Okay,
two
we can
different
define two different modes of cooperative business enterprise. Consumers cooperative, in which the consumers of a cooperative's goods and services are defined as its members, including retail food cooperatives, credit unions, etc. And credit unions also fall under that. And worker cooperatives and producer cooperatives. In worker cooperatives, the producers or workers producing or marketing goods and services are organized into a co-op effort and are its members. Worker cooperatives are owned by their workers, for example, by the owners of the farm, the cheese production, etc., wherever production is taking place. These farms are not required and are rarely in actuality owned by workers. Some consider worker cooperatives, which are owned and run exclusively by their worker owners, as a third class. Others view this as part of the producer category. Interesting. This in turn led to a debate between those who support consumer cooperatives, known as the Cooperative Federalists, and those who favor worker cooperatives, pejoratively labeled individualist cooperatives by cooperativists by the Federalists. And I get the concern, and I think probably ethically speaking, you would want to move more and more towards the former as much as you could over time. And again, in terms of what is, I think, a workable stepping stone that I think you could actually convince the majority of people on Earth to step onto, I think you'd have to start with an individual. And maybe we shouldn't use the word individual since it's pejorative, but go up again? So I just wanted to read.
Yeah, of course. Oh, and just heads up, Dad said that was a good answer. He thought what we were preaching before was like everyone should pack into a studio apartment. We're like,
No, but that's great. Like, that's why
Yeah.
we need these questions, because
yeah.
if he has that question, it means probably other people watching have that question or are going to have that question. So I always want to hear those questions.
Yeah,
and answer
before it's obscene. I think 4 is like more than 4. It's like, all right, now stop.
I think like, for example, I think 2 bedrooms is like should. Like,
Yeah.
you should have a room where you sleep and a room where you do what you like to do. I think that's a very
Everyone should
a thing
have
everyone
access to
should
that.
have. Even if it's like, the room where you do your thing is like a metal forge workshop.
yeah.
Outside. Like, maybe your second bedroom is like more like a garage, but like you should have a workspace.
Sleepy TV.
Yeah.
Friends and family, big place.
Yeah, a communal
and
room.
Dewy stuffy. That's
Yeah.
and a pee poopy.
Exactly.
And a cookie.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
You need a sleepy room, you need a communal room, you need a poo pee room, you need a makey foodie room, and you need a doey thingy you do room.
Easy peasy.
You don't
if everyone
really
had
need
that,
more than that.
y'all can chill out. That's enough.
Like, I guess you could say you also want to like have like a home gym or something. But the thing is, under a healthy, I think, egalitarian market socialist society, you wouldn't want a home gym because there'd just be really great local gyms that everyone could go to.
Yeah. And you'd have so many fun buddies and friends who weren't all like economically competing with you that you could just like go on runs with every day. Like
there'd be all kinds of
we'd all
great
be getting
options.
along so much better. It'd be like, I'll lift you up and down
Yeah.
for I really think if
Yeah.
we just eliminated all of this unnecessary like I make more money than you bullshit.
Yes.
And
that's why I think it's
be
good-
so much friendlier.
Right. And cooperative.
Yeah.
Case in point.
Clappy said a good point.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I
Casey
think,
and I have lived in a studio together.
Oh, I lived in a studio with my my creative partner for about a year, way back when.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I moved in with Derek. Because the first place I moved, like as an adult, was with my ex, and we lived in a horrible.
That I know about.
We shared a 1-bedroom apartment in West Hollywood.
Nice.
That was not nice. It was fine, I guess. But then after that, I moved into a studio, and with Derek, we literally had bunk beds in a studio apartment.
That's so fun.
Yeah,
I slept on Casey's couch for 4 months while I moved out here because he
the
did me.
same apartment.
He did. Oh, it was the same apartment.
Yeah.
He did me the delicious favor of letting me stay with him while I got my feet on the ground when I moved out here when I was 18.
Yeah.
And it's the only reason I was able to do it. So when you help people, life is better.
Yeah, I think my history reflects that I have practiced what I preach in the places where I was
think
able,
so.
under capitalism, to do so.
I think so.
Endeavored to be generous. Though I also, in recent years, have realized how much I have a perhaps bad habit of being too generous. And short changing myself, and sometimes being a doormat in my pursuit of generosity. So another reason why we launched this endeavor was I need to get my oxygen mask on first
Yeah.
before trying to give everyone else
Yeah.
oxygen masks. Like, I know I will be a better, proponent
Yeah.
of these ideas and of these spiritual shifts in society if I have economic stability, which I've never really had. And I'm like 38 now, and I'm tired of being a wage slave and going from thing to thing, as I'm sure I'm not the only one.
And in modern day, like, it sounds crazy because we were raised being like 30 with no kids, not married, not making $1 million.
Yes.
It's like, no, today that's not weird.
No.
Like, someone said it was like living with your parents is the new apartment. Apartment
Yeah.
is the new house. House is the new mansion.
Yep.
And
And mansion is the new private island.
yeah. Plants are the new pets. Pets are the new kids. And kids are the new rich people toys. And I, you know what? Fully agree.
The hottest new toy for rich people.
the hottest-
Children. Truly, though, walk around Beverly Hills, like, motherfuckers dress up their little toddlers like dolls and, like, have them on leashes
their
and
literally
shit.
toys.
It's weird.
I just worked an event in Beverly Hills, and I was just like,
Yeah, it's like, it's
obscene.
certainly not the biggest deal in the world, but whenever I see, like, a little, like, toddler dressed in, like, Dolce & Gabbana
like Jimmy Choo. Or,
and shit, I'm like, must we? This kid doesn't even know. You could have dressed them in Oshkosh Bagosh. They wouldn't give a shit.
It could have just been a muumuu.
Yeah, like,
and nothing else.
Right, you could have wrapped them in a toga. But, like, this is just for you to, like, show off, like, I have the money to dress
It's a
my
status
kid
of
up.
wealth. It's why, like, nice watches are a thing.
Yeah, it's like,
Well,
no, I wouldn't put that in the same category.
I probably would. I think the
Well, it's certainly
the
showing
cultural
off.
exactly. Well, the cultural importance of having like a really nice looking watch
Mm-hmm.
has to do with a wearable status symbol. It's the reason that designer clothes are a thing.
Certainly, generally, I think, generally when you see someone wearing a watch that obviously looks very expensive, that is an example of conspicuous consumption. For sure. And, like, I have a buddy who, like, loves watches. Like, it's his
Well,
favorite
that's
thing.
different.
Right, but I'm saying, but he still is walking around wearing a very nice
Yeah,
watch.
yeah.
So I'm just
Okay,
saying,
okay.
like, nuance, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I know you agree.
Okay. What's the word I'm looking for?
Concede?
Yeah.
That point?
I was gonna say secede, and I knew that was
not
wrong.
secede.
And congratulations, Clampy69, hee hee.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, the first part, not the
Listen.
second part.
We, as a humans, make it work.
Yeah, we
And I trust your judgment just based on the things you say in here.
yes, you seem very smart and put together, and, like, you will find a way through, and compassionate to, like, that is a fucking, that is a daunting prospect.
Oh, yeah.
Understand it being concerning, very much
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And
That's-
we're rooting for you, and we believe in you.
Yeah. I'm a little scared of kids, so I'm proud of you for doing that. Yeah, and I think, watches aren't necessarily a perfect example, Ragnats, but it's just like our sort of cultural desire to show off on our physical person something expensive like a bag or a watch or clothes or shoes that have no like different purpose other than that they cost a lot of money.
Right.
It's a wearable status symbol.
Well, yeah, you're talking about conspicuous consumption.
Yes.
And I think that is a distinction, because, like, I have a nice watch that looks not, but I like it because I think it looks cool.
That's different. Yeah, that's
And
that.
it's a distinction between doing something because you think it's aesthetically pleasing and it's like an expression of your personal style, and doing something because you know it will let other people know how rich you are and all the disposable income you have to spend on silly things. It's a difference between a watch that looks cool and a watch that is like so encrusted with diamonds it looks stupid.
It's like,
But it's just like, see?
like, hold on. I fucked up the mouse. I like did something bad. Okay. Well, what about this? Oh, that's better. Okay.
Stop fucking up the mouse. Oh yeah, there's something in the court. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Louis Vuitton bag. Why would you carry this?
These are hideous.
Why?
I mean,
why
like,
would you buy this?
Aesthetic is obviously a matter of personal
Why?
taste, but also these bags are so ugly.
Who thinks this is cute?
Like the only reason to buy it is as a status symbol because it looks like it's poop on poop.
Why would you buy this? And this shit, how much does this cost? $2,100. Why would you buy this?
Yeah, only to show
It's
off.
a status symbol. It's disgusting. Like it's so uggo.
Anything where the pattern is just the logo repeated
It's so ugh.
skeeves me out so
Well,
hard.
Dolce and Gabbana bags are like
Ugh!
also like why?
Ugh.
Why? This is actually kind of
Wait,
fun.
That one's fun. That one's
actually
fun.
kinda
I like that
one.
one.
Yeah.
But where are the ones that had the big
Yeah,
DG?
where's-
That.
Why would you do that? It's so ugh.
Don't ever carry that around. Ew, look at that. I don't think that's a Dolce Gabbana. That denim one. Oh my god, that's hideous.
See, but that might be like a matter of taste. Like if someone like made a
Sure,
bag
sure,
like this,
sure.
like okay, sure.
Well,
you
it's
have
all a
different
matter
taste.
of taste. It's
But-
all a matter of taste. And that shit's fucking ugly.
But there's like the thing with like the name of the thing
Yeah.
you have on it. It's like
Yeah.
shut up.
Yeah, I hate that
Ew.
shit.
And like not to say I don't appreciate like good designers in the world. Like so
Yeah.
many of these designers are so rich and famous because they've done crazy good designs.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. This is not their best work.
No.
I'll just say it now. It's a status symbol and it's a moneymaker.
Well, there is this particular aesthetic flavor of, opulence and
So ugly.
like gold and filigree and fleur de lis and that
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
look.
yeah.
It's very much in the Trump aesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
like all of Trump's homes look like that Dolce Gabbana bag.
Yeah. You mean fucking ugly?
It's like I mean, in my
Trump.
opinion,
Yeah.
it is taste for the tasteless.
It's
That's what this whole aesthetic is. And some of these bags, when they're not like just plastered with logos, look a little nicer.
Yeah, I mean I
But
don't
that,
mind like yuck! Yucky!
oh my god! I will say on that one that at least the cut is kind of nice. That one we
which
were looking
one?
at,
This
that
one?
Like I kind of like the
Yeah, if you took off
If
the
you took
fucking
off the
giant,
giant-
logo,
cut. Yeah, the giant
it's so
garish
ugh.
DG.
Wait, I had a friend who I don't really know what they look like. Who was like, I would kill a bird for Jimmy Choo shoes.
I like that part of
associate-
our worker co-op segment is talking shit on elite fashion brands.
These are Jimmy Choo's. What's so special about these?
Some of these
fine.
are fine.
They're okay. I know someone who literally was like, I'd kill my mother for a Jimmy Choo.
I feel like there's an aesthetic going on with high heels that I don't fully understand.
Me neither. They're uncomfortable.
I
as hell.
rarely like how high heels look.
I like how
in
they
any
make
case.
butts look. That's
And
about where it
calves,
ends.
They definitely make calves and butts.
Look nice.
Look nice.
Yeah. All right.
I get that functionality, but yeah, I've always been. I mean, I tend to prefer, in my personal preference, a woman in flats. I'm always just concerned, like when a woman's in high heels, I'm like, your feet. Or when anyone's in high
little
heels.
feeties, what will you do?
Yeah, I'm like, it looks so uncomfortable. There are flat shoes.
Yeah.
These other shoes exist, like, and, and I think it's within any individual's right to, if they want to be in pain to make their butt and calves look good, then sure,
Fine.
it's your life. I just
And if
I'm
it
just, like,
doesn't hurt
concerned.
you, cool.
Great.
Yeah, good
I'm
for
just
you.
always like,
I can't relate.
Yeah.
But, cool.
I'm just constantly going like, are you sure? You're sure you want to wear high heels?
Like, that's on purpose? You
Yeah.
Well, yeah, now it's like, if women in business, like, are expected to.
Wear high heels?
Yeah. Yeah, you're, like, supposed to wear high heels
that's
to
no
work. Today. So back to worker
Oh, nice. Cool.
co-ease.
Love this. When the current cooperative movement resurfaced in the 1960s, it developed mostly on a new system of collective ownership, where par value shares were issued as symbols of egalitarian voting rights. Typically, a member may only own one share to maintain the egalitarian ethos. Once brought in as a member and after a period of time on probation, usually so the new candidate can be evaluated, they would be given the power to manage the co-op without quote-unquote ownership in the traditional sense. In the UK, this system is known as common ownership. Some of these early cooperatives still exist, and most new worker cooperatives follow their lead and develop a relationship to capital that is more radical than the previous system of equity share ownership. And so that's interesting, specifically using the already existing system of shares in the company to distribute the power more fairly. In the United States, there's no coherent legislation regarding worker cooperatives nationally, much less federal laws. So most worker cooperatives make use of traditional consumer cooperative law and try to fine-tune it for their purposes. In some cases, the members, workers of the cooperative, in fact, own the enterprise by buying a share that represents a fraction of the market value of the cooperative.
So it's like working within the system to
Yes.
do a different system.
And this is why we so often say that, like, there is an argument to be made that you could do the market socialist policies that we're suggesting under capitalism. And if someone says, like, I want to keep these basic, tenets of the capitalist system, but also I will agree with all this socialist policy of, like, let's decommodify basic human needs, let's make worker co-ops a standard, or at least set up a system to work towards it. Like so often people look at this as like, how could we do it overnight? And obviously you can't do it overnight.
No.
And that there is, I don't think there's any workable approach where it's just like, okay, today's Monday and tomorrow Tuesday, all companies are cooperatives. No, obviously not. That won't work. I've often said, like, the only way I can see functioning under the current capitalist system as ethical is if you are doing so with the sincere intention to move away from it. So I think it's perfectly fine. For example, even with things like, cops or just government in general. I think a good policing institution would be working to engineer its own obsolescence. Same with government to some extent. Like, I'm not necessarily opposed to certain notions of small government and keeping government out of certain things. For example, reproductive rights. But I'm losing my train of thought. But engineering your own obsolescence. That, I think a good government would be working towards reducing dependency on it. And same with police. Like, police should be working for the end of crime.
Yeah.
If they're not working towards the end of crime, then they are working towards crime being a thing forever. And it's like the difference between treating a disease and curing a disease.
Right. I mean, it's a very Eastern Western thing.
Is
for
it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the West is sort of known for not just within diseases, but culturally for, like, Band-Aids. The West loves a Band-Aid.
Yes.
Loves a cop to stop the crimes that will always be happening. Doesn't want to look at the sociological issues behind the crime. But there, like, in the East, there are very different approaches to illness, to socioeconomic issues, to like cultural, like, where workers belong in society. Like, there's just a different structure.
Well, and I think part of it probably connects to, there's a very fundamental cultural difference between the East and West in terms of how we relate to children. Where if, at least I know this was, like, true, like, in the 70s. I don't, like, it might be different now with the further industrialization of everything. But certainly back then, from what I've read, if you asked a child in the East, wait, what is it? Oh, that no, this is what it is. Is that when kids get to the age where they ask, like, where did I come from? That in the West, it's common to ask, how was I made? Something in that vein, that notion of like what built me, you know? And in the East, it's far more common for a child to ask, how did I grow?
Huh.
And I think that denotes a certain greater awareness of the interconnected and organic nature of all things, you know? Like, there is something there of, when you're talking about something growing, like a tree, it's like, it's not just about the tree or the seed. It's about the soil it's in. It's about the nutrients in the soil. It's about the rainfall that feeds it. It's about the sunlight that feeds it. There's far more of an acknowledgement in the notion of growth, of the interconnectedness of things and the interdependency of things. Whereas saying, like, who built me? It implies this view of the world of, like, you know, like, you make things and then it's yours. You made it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you couldn't even exist without other people making you. Like, no one's an island.
It's yeah.
And
Very
I think it
interesting.
very speaks to also the mentality of the guy we were talking to last night, of that sense of entitlement he had to, like, well, I built this distillery, and it's like, where'd you get the metal?
Yeah.
Did you smelt
Yeah.
all the metal for your stills?
Yeah.
Did you make the bricks for the walls?
Yeah. It's like.
Did you build the roads
Yeah.
that you used to transport the materials to the site where you built your still?
Yeah. Good points.
Like, sorry, folks, we depend on each other. You're never going to be able to do it all by yourself. And Replica Fox, I feel you about the
heels.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
be, or like, whatever. Like, sometimes, I dress up in, like, nice clothes, and I'm not wearing heels. Well, I have a little, like, I have some dress shoes I love that have a pretty hefty heel on them, like a good, what do you think, a 3/4 of an inch?
Clonker. Yeah.
And there is something kind of fun of, like, the feeling of, like, I'm all dressed up and put together, and it's, like, a little uncomfortable, but, like, I know I look good. And then getting home and kicking them off is like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas when I, like, put on Crocs to take Pip out and then come back and kick those off, it's like, whatever.
Yeah. I like to say I clean up pretty nice when I actually try, but I hate the process of putting on and taking off things so fucking much. That's why I wear, like, loose, because I can just be like, yoink, and, like, take it off. But, like, I really, like, heels and specifically, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah. But yeah, so coming back to this, I know there are a lot of American liberals who object to a lot of leftism on the notion of, like, you can't, like, again, they go into that thing of, like, you can't do it overnight, even though that's generally not what anyone's suggesting.
Nobody said that.
Or they go into the thing of, like, that, like, you have to account for all the problems that, like, capitalism is solving that are sort of invisible because they're solved, right? And as such, I think that's part of why this is such a better pitch than, like, full communism in terms of a stepping stone, because it maintains a lot of these capitalist principles. And again, I think that can be defensible. That whole notion of, like, hey, like, this, there are many aspects of the system that are functioning in a way now, and there are dangers of, like, upending some of those systems of, like, what if this doesn't work? Like, these questions of instability that could come from these big changes in short periods of time. I think it is ethically defensible to say, let's keep some of these tenets of capitalism if you're using them to work towards, sincerely, a more equitable society. But if you're just kind of like, it is what it is, and it's good enough, and, like, don't rock the boat. Especially since so often the person saying that is just someone who's been very economically lucky. I notice tends to be the trend.
Are the people telling you not to change anything?
Yeah.
Or doing fine?
Yeah.
Weird.
So, like, otherwise I'd say, like poor people just have the right to basically do anything to feed themselves. I think there is actually an ethical argument to be made of maintaining some of these class systems for the greater good, so long as it is in the pursuit of abolishing class. And if that pursuit is not built in, then it's ethically indefensible in my eyes.
Yeah. Oh, good points all around. In Britain, this type of cooperative was traditionally known as a producer cooperative, and while it was overshadowed by the consumer and agricultural types, it also made up a small section of its own within the national apex body, the cooperative union. The, quote, new wave of worker cooperatives that took off in Britain in the mid-1970s joined the Industrial Common Ownership Movement, ICOM, as a separate federation, buoyed up by the alternative and ecological movements and by the political drive to create jobs. The sector peaked at around 2,000 enterprises. However, the growth rate slowed, the sector contracted, and in 2001, ICOM merged with the Cooperative Union, which was the federal body for consumer cooperatives, to create Cooperatives UK, thus reunifying the cooperative sector. In 2006, that's pretty recent, Cooperatives UK's Worker Cooperative Council wrote and updated a worker cooperative code, the booklet that, quote, sets out what anyone should expect and should work together to achieve as a member of a worker cooperative.
I'd like to look at that.
In 2018, even more recent, Google announced a $1 million grant to a platform cooperative development kit in collaboration with 5 pilot cooperatives, which are all worker-owned. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
Platform Wait, let me read that.
Yeah.
A platform cooperative or platform co-op is a cooperatively owned, democratically governed business that establishes a computing platform and uses a website, mobile app, or a protocol to facilitate the sale of goods and services. Platform cooperatives are an alternative to venture capital
Funds, probably.
funds. Well, yeah, fun, but I think there's more to that. But
venture capital funded platforms so far. Yeah.
As they are owned and governed by those who depend on them most, workers, users, and other relevant stakeholders. Right, and that's an interesting distinction between shareholders and stakeholders.
Oh, have good sleep, Replica Fox.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, get those 7 hours of sleep, Replica Fox. Thanks for being here. Great to have you as always. And,
Oh yeah, because now you work a to show up on time job.
Yeah.
The worst. I'm just kidding. It's gonna be fun. You're
yeah,
having a
it'll be
great
great.
time.
You'll have fun at the movie theater.
Don't clean too many bathrooms.
Yes. All righty. According to Longevity and Resilience, according to an analysis of all businesses in Uruguay between 1997 and 2009, worker cooperatives have a 29% smaller chance of closure after controlling for variables such as industry. In Italy, and this is where I believe there's the most co-ops, worker-owned cooperatives that have been created by workers buying a business when it is facing a closure or put up to sale have a 3-year survival rate of 87%. Compared to 48% of all Italian businesses.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy? A 2012 study of Spanish and French worker cooperatives found that they, quote, have been more resilient than conventional enterprises during the economic crisis. In France, the 3-year survival rate of worker cooperatives is 80% to 90%, compared to the 66% overall survival rate for all businesses.
Crazy.
During the 2008 economic crisis, the number of workers in worker-owned cooperatives in France increased by 4.2%, while employment in other businesses decreased by 0.7%.
So just because this says unreliable source, I do want to look this up.
Yeah, look it up.
In Italy, worker-owned cooperatives that have been
Yeah,
let's look up
Great.
Italy. Italian
Cooperative.
worker cooperatives, co-op success versus business success.
General, yeah, versus general. Mondragon, that's the big one. Look for, maybe you want to Google actually statistics.
Just add the word statistics. The Spanish government takes cooperative. This should have a list.
This is too much.
Oh, girl,
Too much.
no.
Too much.
We're trying to read 38 pages.
Delete the whole thing you Googled. Start fresh.
Okay, here we go. It
Worker co-op. Success and stability compared to general business. Let's try that.
Sorry, I can't spell.
We don't need Italy.
Compared to what? General business?
Yes, sure.
Worker cooperatives performance and co-op-law.org.
Yeah, this looks like it.
This
has
is
some-
United States.
Yeah, well, yeah, we don't need to look at specifically Italy, even though it is a great example because there's a lot of them.
A growing body of evidence from studies in the United States and elsewhere indicate that worker cooperatives are more resilient than conventional businesses on average.
There you go.
There are a number of reasons why this would be. Profit is not their primary objective, so they can flex with economic turbulence. Worker owners are more committed to their workplaces than traditional employees.
Big time.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
And worker co-ops have a productivity advantage over other businesses. I wonder why. However, worker cooperatives are quite rare in the United States. This
Yes.
yields a scarcity of data from which to evaluate the survival of these entities. I'm glad that they acknowledge that, but does not provide that does not prove that co-ops have a higher failure rate than conventional businesses. Rather, co-ops face unique barriers to entry. Yes, investment in worker cooperatives and the organizations that support them can help lower these barriers and facilitate a more sustainable economy.
And that's why, like, going back to the debate we had yesterday with the guy, why it's a little bullshit to be like, well, if it's so great, then they should take over. Because, like, however great it is in and of itself as a model, like, under capitalism, you still have just super rich people with way more power than anyone. Like, like it would be, I mean, perhaps it's possible to start a worker co-op to like make shoes and eventually over time like overtake a Nike. But the thing is, the moment you become any kind of legitimate economic threat to Nike's profit share, they will start targeting you with economic attacks.
Right.
Of all kinds, and they have the capital to fuck you up casually. Like they
Yeah.
can just throw lawsuits at you, and they could be baseless lawsuits, but they'll eat up your resources defending yourself, and the little worker co-op making shoes will never be able to afford the legal battle that Nike can afford. So while I love that people are doing worker co-ops under capitalism, and I think we should do more and keep finding new and better ways to do them, it seems like you could never just count, even if they are better as models, they still can't compete against the sheer power of super wealthy people under capitalism. So
Yeah.
inevitably, I think there'd have to be, again, either a spiritual revolution or some kind of major policy shift to really make it doable. Like, you can't just say, like, well, compete in the free market. That's not a solution.
And just like as a wink wink to the person we were talking to yesterday who said co-ops don't exist and is Canadian. In Canada, cooperatives in British Columbia between 2000 and 2010, this is recent, had a 5-year survival rate of 66.6%, 100 out of 150, compared to conventional Canadian businesses, what had a 43 and 39 5-year survival rate in 1984 and 1993, respectively. Alberta cooperatives created in 2005 and 2006 had a 3-year survival rate of 81.5% compared to 48%. 2008 in Quebec, 62% versus 44, 35, and 20 respectively. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like the data, well, because worker cooperatives are still relatively rare, especially compared to traditional firms. We still have a certain amount of limitation of data that should be acknowledged. And so far, based on the data we have, it seems across the board and around the world, what is being shown is that these companies work better. That co-ops are superior.
And I'm not going to read all of this, but I am scrolling through it so that if any of you at home are like, Kizzy and Zoe are full of shit and want to just read the article, here,
Yeah.
you can pull it up.
You can go through, go in more in depth. Obviously, we're not going to go into every granular thing.
Clappy69 he said, I live in British Columbia and it's evil.
Well, indeed. And it raises the question of, like, what is a hippie?
All right.
You know, because if we're talking about, like, 1960s hippies as a counterculture movement, I think there's much to criticize in terms of how, like, they talked a really big game, and then once they got a little older, they all just, like, went corporate, and now, like, all those hippies are, like, corporate boomers. Like, there's certainly stuff to look at there and criticize as a counterculture movement. But generally speaking, I see nothing wrong with if, like, someone just wants to be, you know, a fucking nature boy or nature
Well, that's
girl.
the thing. Are you talking about people who are granola?
Yeah,
Because
right.
in that case, then, like, right on.
Whatever, yeah, party. You want to, like, live in a house made out of 2-liter soda bottles?
I
And,
don't
like,
care.
like, cool. No, I'm like, if I love
Yeah.
that shit. I'm like, that's, like, yeah, if you're into that, party on.
Have fun.
And I love some of those those sustainable houses. They're super cool.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it all depends on what is your gift, because there's a lot of and there's a lot of hippies who just like who do kind of fit the negative stereotype of, like, they're just kind of, like, lackadaisical and unhealthily detached from the rest of humanity. So yeah, it's fascinating. Hey, what's up, TVOJ Strax? Hello.
Hi from California.
Yeah, hi from Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the chat.
So this is actually saying here that a 2006 study found that wages on co-ops pay in Italy were 15 to 16% lower than those that
Interesting.
capitalist firms paid on average, and were more volatile while employment was more stable.
Interesting.
From Moscow, nice.
So after controlling that, this changed to 14%. The author suggests this might be due to worker cooperatives being more likely than capitalist firms to cut wages instead of laying off employees.
Oh, yes.
During periods of economic difficulty. And that's the thing. If a company is going through an authentic period of economic difficulty,
Which
where,
often is caused by capitalists being mean to co-ops.
Yes. Or just, manipulating the market in general, not in a direct way towards the co-op. And it's a situation where literally the company has to cut costs or it will go out of business. Then cutting wages to keep from firing people obviously has an entirely different ethical context. That's very different from, like, a massive multinational conglomerate making the biggest profits they've ever made in history and then cutting wages.
Yeah.
And firing people.
And it's also a good point to say that, it not in every case does a co-op pay more than a capitalist firm.
But also there's something, and definitely it is good to say that, and there's something to be said to the, the value of the mental health, that probably a lot of these people were cool with that because, like, not having as much extra spending money is a lot easier to live with when you feel like your company values you. And that when you go to work, you're going to, like, a community in which you have a voice.
Yeah, this is saying that they were far more productive. Positive relationships with productivity, as opposed to do more work and make the same amount of money.
And all these people, and the issue here too is the rareness of co-ops, that they only have so much of the market. If co-ops were the standard, there'd be a lot more money to pay the people who work at the co-ops.
Right. According to a study drawing on a questionnaire from the population of the Italian province of Trento, worker cooperatives are the only form of enterprise that fosters social trust between employees. Survey conducted in Seoul suggests that in conventional firms, employees become less committed to their jobs as their work becomes more demanding. However, this is not the case in worker cooperatives. It seems like anything that one can guess through common sense is deducible? What's the word?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it would be deducible. Deductible means something else.
Yeah, deductible is like my insurance.
Yeah. But maybe I'm not sure about that one.
It seems like we can kind of guess the trends of how these cooperatives are going to work. People are going to be happier, things are going to be better, and that seems to be what the data is showing.
Well, yeah. Why don't you Google specifically, like, Statistics, worker co-op, worker satisfaction.
50by50.org.
For sure.
Workers at co-op. Go ahead.
For sure. And I was real quick. I see your question, TVOJ Strax. We do think Russia's war on Ukraine is a bad thing, and Vladimir Putin's a bad guy. And if you'd like to hear more of our thoughts, we have a video on YouTube where we go in depth with a friend who is from Ukraine. So yeah, that's that question. Moving on. Workers at cooperatives report high job satisfaction and community engagement. Data set from First National Survey of Co-op Workers publicly available through Democracy at Work Institute. Over the years, worker cooperatives have sparked the imagination and hope of many who dream of a more just alternative to the capitalist employment relationship. In a cooperative, workers own and control business democratically, in contrast to the dominant. So we've gone over this. A new study by the Democracy at Work Institute documents the real-world experiences of workers and worker cooperatives across the United States. It both affirms the power of this alternative model and brings down to earth perhaps some loftier utopian dreams. Nice. We can go past the quote, we'll get to that. The study report, quote, How Economic Democracy Impacts Workers, Firms, and Communities by Laura Hansen-Schlachter and Olga Prushinskaya, centers on the 2017 Census of Individuals and Worker Cooperatives, a national survey of 1,147 people employed in 82 worker cooperatives across the country. The first national survey of worker owners at co-ops, the study includes in-depth interviews with 15 survey participants and enterprise-level data about the cooperative businesses themselves. This combined approach means worker attitudes and experiences can be linked to company characteristics, and statistical findings are enhanced with quotes from interviewees. Nice. The report documents how workers in co-ops fare in terms of their pay, benefits, and wealth accumulation. It also explores worker perspectives on job quality, autonomy, voice, sense of ownership, and their participation in business governance.
Findings.
Among the findings, the report reveals cooperatives have markedly egalitarian pay structures and often offer profit-sharing opportunities. The median pay ratio was 1.5 to 1.
That is not bad.
Meaning the highest paid employees received just 50% more than the lowest paid in the typical cooperative studied. 8 co-ops in the sample had completely flat wage scales in which every individual in the company earns the same amount of pay. And hey, if that works for that group, party. More than half of individual respondents said they earn more at their cooperative job than in their previous job. The report suggests there may be a, quote, cooperative wage boost of $3.52 per hour at the mean and $2 at the median for worker owners. Not huge and not nothing. The mean value of equity or wealth individuals accumulated in their internal capital accounts was over $10,000. The median value was $2,000. Of the 280 worker owners who had ever received a cash patronage or profit-sharing distribution from their cooperative, the median value of the distribution was $2,328.
Interesting.
And obviously, to your average worker, the idea of getting a bonus at any time of over $2,000 is like an incredible dream.
To the everyman.
Yeah. That would be great. Like, imagine,
Please give me $2,000.
Imagine when we were working at the ArcLight movie theater, if like every year they were like, here's a $2,000 bonus. We'd be like,
I'd be like,
The majority of individual or non-financial job quality benefits may be even more important than financial benefits for workers in cooperatives,
which we
according to the
mentioned
report.
just before.
Yeah. The majority of individual respondents described their job security, job satisfaction, work effort, and the economic stability of the company as somewhat or much better than what they experienced in their last job. A majority reported the quality of supervision, feedback, and training was superior in their co-op job.
Interesting.
Within co-ops, training and skill building matters for democratic governance. Workers who received cooperative-specific training participated more in workplace decision-making. Yeah. Benefits to... Well, and that's the thing is like... Again, it's so different. Like, if you know you're part of the company, you're a worker owner, you have a voice, you're voting on how things go, and you go through a tough period, or you know, the company faces an economically challenging period, and then you agree to like lower your wages so no one gets fired and to keep the company going. Like, spending that month eating ramen, you can take pride in it, of like, I'm part of a community, and I'm, you know, and we're all working together and doing what we have to keep this community enterprise going. Whereas if you're just eating ramen because there's a rich guy at the top of the company who doesn't want to give you any of the profits that the company's making, like you can feel that you're being exploited.
Yeah.
And that damage to your mental health is, you know, you can't put a price on that. The report suggests that working in a cooperative is associated with increased civic engagement.
Shocking.
Yeah. 7 in 10 respondents had participated in at least one civic activity in the past year, serving as an officer or committee member in an organization outside of work, attending public meetings, or joining a protest.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting.
I mean, it's not surprising.
No. Challenges. At its core, the worker cooperative promises a more worker-centered model of business organization. In seeming tension with that promise are the facts that just 19% of worker cooperatives in the study offered retirement benefits to their workers. Interesting, and fewer than half offered health benefits. And so this speaks to why, like, you know, again, why, like, it's really not enough to just do this under capitalism. And if we had universal health care, then that wouldn't matter. Like, businesses should not be covering people's health care. It's a stupid system that we currently deal with in America. And so, so obviously if the things that we want decommodified were decommodified, then that would not even be an issue in our model. The typical cooperative is small, with about 8 workers. It seems likely that these very low rates of benefit provision simply reflect the small size of many of the businesses in the study, 29% of which the report describes as, quote, micro businesses. Still, this tension is a reminder that however worker-centered their values, worker cooperatives in the United States must operate within larger social systems, yes, including the U.S. system of employer-based benefits provision, yes. Unfortunately, that system requires small businesses to shoulder the burden of the too small welfare state, well said, and makes it difficult for employees of small businesses, regardless of their ownership structure, to access benefits comparable to employees in larger firms. While worker cooperatives embody a democratic alternative with egalitarian wage scales and worker governance rights, in the current phase of the development of the U.S. cooperative sector, the larger societal systems in which worker cooperatives operate continue to limit their ability to fully enact their worker-centered values in practice. So, you know, obviously, like, this is being debated, and I think we would both take the position that were the other socialist policies we're suggesting were in place, that all these little tiny weaknesses to the worker co-op model would seemingly evaporate.
Right, because they're only weaknesses in the context of how we're living right now.
Yeah, their weakness is that they have to constantly contend with capitalism being a thing.
Right.
Yeah, and also I was going to say, let's do a Google Doc.
Oh, yeah, just make one?
Yeah, because I want to keep these links.
Okay.
So when we talk to someone, another person who thinks like Dustin, we can pull this stuff up quickly. You know?
Just because we've been doing this for so long, I don't want to do like an entire like essay, but let's see. Worker.
No, just like a link.
Like the link doc. Yeah. I'm gonna make it look prettier in a second. Worker co-op. Worker co-ops. Yay.
Great.
Okay.
Love it.
For now, I'll fix it. But let's do this.
No. I just want to document the links.
No, yeah, for sure. Let's see, 50 by 50.
So we're not like talking to someone. They're like, we read this great article. Let's try to Google it.
Yeah, for sure.
No, we just bring it right
up. So this
up.
one is talking about pros and cons of worker co-ops
based on statistical data. Hell yeah, good game.
Hell yeah.
Good game.
And then we also, the Wikipedia page of worker co-ops. Copy,
yeah, put in the Wikipedia. Good to have.
Paste.
Not that that's hard to find, but.
General
history and
general wiki, and then we click on a few. This is cooperative economics.
And now I'd like to specifically look into, I think it's in Mondragon.
Yes.
Italy, where there's this like I believe there's a interconnected network of co-ops.
Okay. I just want to make sure we have everything we went over today.
Oh yeah, good, yeah.
No, not paste, you stupid asshole.
You fool.
Okay. Copy. Okay. Yeah, so you want to look up Mondragon.
Or I think it might be Mondragon. That might be the corporation. Maybe. Look at Mondragon Corporation.
Just changed it to cooperative, so yeah. Is a cooperative socioeconomic project.
Well, sure. We'll look at their statement about themselves first.
Yeah. I'm gonna just copy paste this real quick.
And I believe they're the biggest like collection of co-ops on Earth. I think. According to Mondragon. Nice.
Okay. Where'd it go? Here we go.
Yeah, fantastic. Mondragon, or Mondragon, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is the outcome of a cooperative business project launched in 1956. Its mission is encapsulated in its corporate values: intercooperation, grassroots management, corporate social responsibility, innovation, democratic organization, education, and social transformation, among others. We are a dedicated group of people with a cooperative identity, forming a business group that is profitable, competitive, and enterprising, capable of successfully operating in global markets. Our organization uses democratic methods in its corporate organization, and its aims are employment, the personal and professional advancement of its workers, and the development of its community. And it's funny in this moment, too, I feel like giving like a shout out to my old boss at Petrol Advertising.
Oh, yeah?
A dude who gave me my first job as a professional writer, and he ran, and he's it was not a worker co-op, but something I always really respected about him is that he had a staunch rule of like not letting people go, like when they went through a tough time.
Oh, nice.
I don't think cut workers' pay, but like it was basically like he was always very committed to that, and that did sometimes work out to maybe less pay for some people, to make that doable. But I always admired that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Shout out,
because he came up as a freelancer, so he knew how it was.
Yeah. This is
shout out, Alan, cool guy.
Thanks Alan. Mondragon is divided into 4 areas: finance, industry, retail, and knowledge. It currently consists of 96 separate self-governing cooperatives, around 80,000 people, and 14 R&D centers, occupying first place in the Basque Business ranking and 10th in Spain.
So 95 cooperatives, 80,000 people, 14 research and development centers, first place in the Basque Business ranking.
Cool. Sales in more than 150 countries.
Mondragon is the leading business project in the Basque Country and one of the largest corporations in Spain. It operates throughout the world with 141 production plants in 37 countries, commercial business in 53, and sales in more than 150. And that's the thing. Like, if every company had these ethics at their core, defining their operations, we probably could make a fairly equitable world under capitalism. They just don't.
Totally. So in their mission statement, they're emphasizing democratic methods in their work environment.
Yeah, committed to a sustainable society, greater competitiveness, and customer satisfaction, with the remit to create wealth and transform society through business development and employment. It is driven by a commitment to solidarity, applying democratic methods in its organization and management. It boosts people's engagement and involvement in the management, performance, and ownership of its companies. Vision. Mondragon is cooperation, a cooperative socioeconomic project with dedicated people working in global companies that are profitable, competitive, and enterprising, acknowledged for their human value, social impact, and competitiveness. Interesting. Owners and protagonists.
That's an interesting
cool.
language.
Cool way to put it.
Okay.
Making all your employees into protagonists. I dig that.
Grassroots management, fair distribution. Well, this is the most, I think, important in the context of how we live. And innovation, continuous renewal. Okay, so this is them according to them. Is it really a cooperative? Nope, that's their fucking website again. Let's see.
So there's we can look at the Wikipedia.
Co-op
But let's see,
sentence.
past
Here's
year.
New York Times. Soften capitalism's rough. What?
I'd like to look at this. And I think that's a fair way to describe it.
Stop.
I mean, I guess rough edges is a pretty charitable
Yeah.
label, but it does soften the roughness. So let's go down to the thing. Do you want to read this one?
Sure.
Good.
Of course, there's a word I don't know how to pronounce right off the bat.
Get away, you bug! Get away!
Oh, it's a biggie.
It's a big old housefly. Probably came into the
Erica?
open door.
Erica?
Probably Erica.
All right, I'm going to say
Or
Erica.
Eureka.
Don't come for me, please. I can't read. If the Erica Group operated like most businesses, the pandemic would have delivered a traumatic blow to its workers. Based in the rugged Basque region of Spain, the company produces a variety of goods, including sliding doors, plastic parts used in cars, and medical devices sold around the world. As the coronavirus ravaged Europe in late March, the Spanish government ordered the company to shut 2 of its 3 local factories, threatening the livelihoods of 210 workers there. But the Erica Group,
Erica.
God damn it, of course the one I read I can't read, averted layoffs by temporarily trimming wages by 5%. It continued to pay workers stuck at home in exchange for the promise that they would make up for some of their hours when better days returned.
Interesting.
Yeah. This flexible approach was possible because the company is part of a vast collection of cooperative enterprises centered in the town of Mondragon.
Mondragon. Yeah.
If you say it in Spanish, most of its workers are, or if you
I think
say
that's probably
it,
the Italian pronunciation.
if you say it not like an asshole, you can say Mondragon, whatever. Well, if you wanna.
I think Mondragon sounds cool.
I say asshole because obviously I'm a gringa. Most of its workers are partners, meaning that they own the company, though the 96 cooperatives of the Mondragon Corporation must produce profits to stay in business, as any company does. These businesses have been engineered not to lavish dividends on shareholders or shower stock options on executives, but to preserve paychecks. What a concept.
Yeah.
The concept of the cooperative may conjure notions of hippie socialism, limiting its value as a model for the global economy, but Mondragon stands out as a genuinely large enterprise. Its cooperatives employ more than 70,000 people in Spain, making it one of the nation's largest sources of paychecks. Very interesting. They have annual revenues of more than 12 billion euros, or $14.5 billion. The group includes one of the country's largest grocery chains, Eroski,
I think, or Eroski.
with a credit union and manufacturers that export their wares around the planet. Mondragon is one of the landmarks of the social economy movement because of its scale. Said Amal Chevreau, a policy analyst for
Probably
the...
Chevreau.
Yeah, a policy analyst at the Center for Entrepreneurship at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. They show that it's possible for to be profitable but still act on social objectives.
Yep.
Stupid flies, stop.
And like the
Is he on you?
he's just
Oh, I thought he landed on you and you were like, hello.
Like Mike Pence style, no.
Sweet baby.
Ooh, my little fly. No. Quality. Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing about like the profit, like because clearly it's a funny sort of paradox that by not making profit their first value, they make good profits. I think it just goes to show that, like, when you value your fellow humans, things go in a good direction. Always.
Yeah, here. Last year, 181 members of the Business Roundtable, a leading group of chief executives, pledged fidelity to a new mission statement in which they promised to run their businesses not solely for the enrichment of shareholders, but also for the sustenance of other so-called stakeholders, workers, suppliers, and the environment and local communities. So, like,
Nice.
I mean, right now, it's the fucking shareholders that get everything.
Standard under the capitalist system. Shareholders get the most money out of companies and do nothing. Except have capital earlier on.
Exactly. The pandemic posed the first real test of the principles of stakeholder capitalism. Interesting. The results have been checkered, with one study finding that the signers of the pledge performed no better than the average company. Many large businesses have distributed much of their earnings to shareholders in the form of dividends and purchases of their own shares, which lift stock prices. When the pandemic arrived, many lacked the reserves to weather a downturn, prompting managers to furlough and fire workers to cut costs. So much of this would not even be a little bit of a problem if people had free healthcare and food and shelter.
Well, yeah, and as we've said many times before, like while we are pushing for a more radical change, in terms of moving towards market socialism, at the same time, we acknowledge that, like, if all we did in America was instate policies that guaranteed all people had access to any healthcare they needed and unlimited education, that might kind of fix everything. Or even if it doesn't fix everything, it at least would lend far more credence to claims of capitalism being a meritocracy, an American capitalism. As long as healthcare and higher education are kept behind a paywall, there's no meritocracy. Meritocracy is complete bullshit in that context. But if everyone could get as much education as they want and never have to be suddenly surprise bankrupted by an injury or an illness, then I think you actually could make a pretty strong argument for, look, in that system, whoever's successful or not so successful would have a lot more to do with individual merit, for sure. Nice, Eric. I've heard it's fun.
I haven't even heard about it.
Well, that's the new Michael Bay movie, Ambulance.
Oh, yeah, I heard it was good.
Yeah. Well, Michael Bay is a fun filmmaker. When he has a good script, he's fun. The Rock, very fun movie.
Solid TNT afternoon movie. Nice.
Hell yeah.
Cooperatives have been expressly created to prevent such outcomes, which is firing people. They typically require that managers plow the bulk of their profits back into the company to prevent layoffs in times of duress.
Yeah.
We have the philosophy of not firing people, said Anton Tomasena?
Probably Tomasena.
The Erica's group.
Or Tomasena.
Well, yeah, if this is in Spanish, I want to say Tomasena.
They're both Romance languages. The pronunciation
but
tends to be pretty similar.
Isn't Mondragon in Spain? Not Italy?
Well, yeah, and isn't that also built on Latin? Am I wrong?
Yeah. But I wasn't sure if it was like this guy's Italian or Spanish.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We wanted people to not have too many worries. Really? Good. Yet, even as cooperatives are increasingly part of the discussion about how to update capitalism, they remain confined to the margins of commercial life. Exactly. They are found in Italy and Belgium. In the north of England, the city of Preston has promoted cooperatives as an antidote to a decade of national austerity.
Fuck austerity.
A series of cooperatives in Cleveland have been organized by a nonprofit, the Democracy Collaborative. In Mondragon, the cooperatives trace their origins to the wreckage of the Spanish Civil War in the early 1940s, when a priest, Jose M. Arizmendiarrieta. I believe is how you say that.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Arrived in the area bearing unorthodox idea about economic betterment.
Nice.
Rich in ore, the Basque Country had long been the scene of industry, especially steelmaking, but most workers were poorly paid. People typically started working when they were 14 and advanced little. When the priest approached the owner of a private vocational school to see about opening it to everyone, he was rebuffed. So he started his own today known as Mondragon University. Yeah, this is great. Over the decades, scores of other cooperatives took root, dominating the town's economy. Each business is autonomous, but they operate under shared principles, especially the understanding that if someone loses a job at one cooperative, he or she has the right to take a position at one of the others. That's cool. If there's no job, partners are entitled to job training plus unemployment benefits lasting up to 2 years.
Amazing.
That's longer than we get unemployment.
Yeah.
In the United States, the chief executives of the largest 350 companies are paid about 320 times as much as the typical worker, according to the Economic Policy Institute in Washington. At Mondragon, salaries for executives are capped at 6 times the lowest wage.
Yeah, and the thing about when you do that is it's not just a matter of like limiting the top person's benefits. It's also incentivizes for the person at the top to get the lowest workers' wages as high as possible. Because the higher they're able to make the lowest workers' wages, the higher they can make their own wages. Instead of just giving them absolute power to give themselves endless raises indefinitely. It seems like a better way.
And I think this is within Mondragon, but the lowest tier is 16,000 euros a year, or almost 20,000. Look, I made less than $20,000 last year. That was a substantial amount of money.
And which, in the context of Spain, is higher than the minimum wage.
Not great, but whatever. And says most people do earn double that.
And here's the thing that's important to keep in mind, I think, too, about minimum wage as it stands. And I realized this even more over the pandemic, where I was lucky enough to receive rent assistance and stuff. Is that if there wasn't rent and mortgages, you could keep the minimum wage exactly what it is right now. If you didn't have to pay rent and mortgages, if we just decommodified housing, keep the minimum wage. Then it's plenty of money. The number one thing that makes it very necessary, if you care about humans living a decent life, to raise the minimum wage is the real estate industry. If we weren't constantly being economically bled out by real estate interests, you could keep the minimum wage as it is, and people would have plenty of money. It's the biggest. Because
money would be for fun money
right.
stuff.
It's the biggest expense in everyone's budget across America. So decommodifying housing, then you don't really have to raise the minimum wage. Worth keeping in mind.
So it seems like living wage in Spain is about 300 euros more than the minimum wage. Which, if these people are making double the minimum wage, or double a little over the minimum wage, they're doing great.
Yeah.
Or not great, but at least good enough in the context of their society. Every cooperative...
Better than the people in traditional firms.
Yeah.
That's it.
Every cooperative pays into a collective pool of money that covers unemployment benefits to aid to member cooperatives that are struggling. When a crisis requires limiting production, workers continue to get paid as normal, while accruing balances of working time owed that management can assign later. The system proved robust during the global financial crisis of 2008, followed by the so-called sovereign debt crisis across Europe. Joblessness soared beyond 26% in Spain. Wow. But in Mondragon, the cooperatives apportioned...
Unusual word. You don't see it a lot.
Apportioned the pain through wage cuts and advance payments on future hours. Unemployment barely budged. The crisis did set off the downfall of the original cooperative, Fagor.
Or Fagor, maybe?
In Spanish, I feel like it would be Fagor.
Maybe, I don't know.
But if it's maybe Fagor, who knows? Which made household appliances, including refrigerators, that left nearly 1,900 people jobless. Yikes.
Yeah, and the thing I think to keep in mind about work co-ops, and yet another thing, is that I don't think the pitch of worker co-ops is that they can never fail. Certainly there can be extenuating circumstances such as a pandemic or any other number of factors that could bring about the failure of a co-op. It's not like they're bulletproof. And statistically, it seems that they function better both from a profit standpoint of the overall business and worker satisfaction. And the other thing I think is also worth noting philosophically as us is that even if it was just worker satisfaction, I'd still support it. You know, like I'm glad it also has business value, and that makes our position even stronger. But like, I value people having a nice life that they enjoy over a general business success, while also acknowledging that there are aspects of business success that reflect inescapable material realities, just not always. Exactly. Yeah, and totally, Ragnats. Yeah, right. That's the thing. Like, yeah, like it seems by every standard metric of the effectiveness, efficiency, productivity of a business, that co-ops like win on like every metric. So yeah, they seem pretty great. And let's look at this though. Yet within 6 months of Fagor's demise, 600 of its former workers had found positions at other cooperatives. So 600 out of 1,900, that's it's about a third. And the rest gained severance and early retirement packages, according to the group. As the leaders in Mondragon portray it, the fact that Fagor collapsed while its employees were protected affirmed the value of the cooperative model. Exactly. Well, isn't that fascinating? That the company failed, but the workers were protected.
Isn't that freaking nice?
Yeah, what a thought to value humans over businesses in a society made up of humans.
Unbelievable. No, we live in a society made up of businesses that have humans living in it.
Yeah, haven't you heard the Supreme Court? Corporations are people now, according to those geniuses.
Fucking genius. In recent years, the cooperatives have added contract and temporary workers who lack ownership rights, raising questions about whether the model can endure as their operations grow and compete with larger players. Many of Mondragon's businesses have expanded abroad, following their customers to Mexico, Brazil, China, and scores of other countries. Most of the international subsidiaries are not cooperatives. Subsidiaries?
Yeah.
Subsidiaries.
Sorry, like I don't want you to feel
no,
like...
it's okay. I can't read. I've said it a million
just like
times.
yeah, just we're all learning.
Are not cooperatives but traditional businesses. They operate under a loose directive to improve on local working conditions, but Mondragon's leaders acknowledge this is now I'm really not going to be able to read. Acknowledge this is more aspiration than reality.
Don't psych yourself out.
I'm so psyched out right now. I'm like, now that
You're doing great. You're doing great. You're reading 99% of the
I'm literally
word.
an actor. I get paid to read.
But I'm just like your older brother. Showing like, hey, let's all, and for everyone at home, let's all work on, pronouncing words well. It's not the huge deal.
No, it's huge.
Not the end of the world.
No,
The most important thing is that
stupid little idiot.
No, the most important thing is that the ideas are conveyed. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
Pronunciation is mostly aesthetic, and I think there's something to be said for it.
After all, the Mondragon cooperatives were created to improve livelihoods in Mondragon, not reform labor markets worldwide. The cooperative model does not protect its people, but it has to be competitive, said Zigor Espeleta, who oversees social programs at Mondragon. Otherwise, it disappears. That's a cool name, Espeleta. During the spring, as many of Mondragon's customers had to shut their factories because of the pandemic, orders for parts plunged. Production at Mondragon factories plunged 25% of capacity. The cooperatives responded with the 5% cut in pay. No one was happy about it, but opposition was limited. Since then, nearly all of the cooperatives are back to nearly full capacity as partners pay back the hours for which they are compensated when factories were shut down. Overall, the cooperatives expect people to be profitable for the year.
Cooperatives expect to be profitable.
What did I say?
Expect people to be profitable.
Why the hell did I put the word people in there?
I don't know.
Probably because... Well, don't say I don't know like that. Stupid.
No. Learning. Not stupid.
This is
learning,
the guy.
learning.
This is the guy that heads Mondragon.
Okay, interesting.
Or the Erica group, rather.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Or Ereka, which I assume is probably correct if it's in Spanish. Mondragon cites its pandemic performance as evidence of its nimbleness, as well as the operational advantages of trust flowing from a sense of shared purpose. When you explain a situation very clearly, and when people know that they are the owners of the business, you are able to do these kinds of efforts. Said
Inigo Usin.
Inigo Usin,
Love the name
president
Inigo.
of the Mondragon Corporation. For most multinational. I love to add shit. Multinational companies adapting to the pandemic, the interests of shareholders and employees typically diverge. Executives have continued to cash in on stock-based compensation, buoyed by public bailouts, even at companies that have resorted to layoffs.
Oh yeah.
At Mondragon, workers know that as owners, they stand to benefit from sacrifices that strengthen their business. This is more than a job, said Joanna Ibarretek.
That's a Ibarexi, maybe. That's a tough one.
Cano.
We're gonna have to ask her.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. We're really trying with all the names. We want to pronounce them correctly. A production manager at the Eureka Group, whose factory was closed for all of April. This is part of being a team. The mother of two said she was anxious at the first wave of the pandemic played out for her family, for the team she supervises, and for the business. Nobody likes not being able to go to work, she said, but the way the company has weathered the crisis has reinforced her faith in the structure of her company. Her income was largely unaffected, even as the factory remained closed. Unheard of.
Yeah.
The cooperative system has given us peace of mind, she said.
Yeah, and that is another thing that is tough
And
to
that's it!
Tough to put a price tag on.
I put that on Daki.
And yes, Ragnats, Toys R Us. Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah.
Hate that. I mean, as a guy who grew up loving Toys R Us, I mean, one of my favorite places. In Manhattan, there was Toys R Us, and there was also, if I recall correctly, Kitty City.
Kitty
You remember
City?
this?
What the
I'm
hell
pretty
is
sure I'm
Kitty
remembering
City?
this correctly.
I'm looking this up.
I am too.
Kitty City. Welcome to Kitty City.
No, that's Kitty. Kitty as in kids.
Oh, Kitty.
K-I-D-D-I-E.
Wow.
Yes.
Kitty City.
No, I remember when I was a kid too. I was like, "Why are they calling us kitties? That's a cat." And then
Wait, is
my
this a
mom was like,
thing?
"No, that means." Okay, well now I'm seeing a kids activity center. This could be like a modern thing. Okay, wait, let me see Kitty City Toy Store, because I think they were put out of business by Toys R Us.
Lionel Kitty. Yeah, Kitty City Toy Store started
Yes.
in the 1960s. Found it.
Yep. So
The
there used
Lionel
to be.
Kitty
There used to
City.
be. I believe it was also in Times Square, and I think the Toys R Us in Times Square is still there. But there used to also be Kitty City, and those are like my two favorite places in the city. Were Toys R Us, or no, my three favorite places: Toys R Us, Kitty City, and FAO Schwartz.
Yeah.
Just all about the toy stores.
I've only been to FAO Schwartz a couple of times that I have recollection of,
Mm-hmm.
and I was an adult all the times.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's a place for kids. But yeah, Toys R Us, they were not, as I understand, they were not profitable. Mm-hmm. They were not, they didn't need to go out of business because of that. It was just like the people the shareholders, there was like an opportunity to have, to grab some cash by putting them out of business.
It's Times Square Poggers. If you're visiting, yes.
Yeah.
If you live there,
You never want to
no.
go. Unless you're a little kid who wants to go to the toy stores. But,
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I definitely, and, maybe it's just me being nostalgic, but I definitely prefer the Times Square of the 80s and 90s that I grew up in to the Times Square of today. I feel like it's, not that it wasn't always
it's different.
a big pile of advertisements and, and like
Flashy.
commerce, but like, it feels more phony now to me. The last time I went a couple years ago, maybe like a year before the pandemic, I was like, oh, this is not the Times Square I grew up in.
I will say, though, the Applebee's on Times Square slapped. Slaps. Hardcore. Best Applebee's.
If you're allergic to German toys, you may have an FAO Schwartz cough. Wow.
Slap, 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 slap. Times Square is cool, yeah, if you're a visitor. But if you live there, I don't know. I think during the pandemic, they reopened the road. Because the thing they were doing, at least in my adolescence, I think is when it started, the roads were closed. Like, all of Times Square, like the actual intersections. I think it's like 3 blocks. You can't drive through.
Got it.
And yeah, it's annoying for New York traffic.
I know, Clappy 69.
Look-
We're both very privileged
Yeah,
in terms of where we've gotten to live.
If it makes you feel better, most of my time in New York was not in New York City. I only lived in New York City for a portion of my life. Most of
And
the
in
time
Brooklyn, right?
in Brooklyn.
Yeah, you never lived in
No, not in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I spent a ton of time in Manhattan, but I never had a house in Manhattan. You've lived. No, I just started reading that out loud for no reason. But I lived most of my time on Long Island.
Right. Which is
is
a lovely place, but not New York
fucking
City.
island where everything closes at 6 p.m., let me tell you. So that makes you feel better. It's where all the rich people who work in New York City have their stupid racist houses.
Yeah.
And where it was actually, historically, Long Island was... an experiment of sorts, if I'm not mistaken, where they had like masters and slaves who lived in different parts of or indentured servants, whatever was happening
Whatever
in
you
New York
want
at
to
the
call
time.
the slaves.
But they had like all of the rich people living on this area and all of the poor people living in this area, and the poor people would then very quickly travel to the rich people's houses to then work.
Right.
Which is why in Long Island, every adjacent town is a rich Republican village, and then a very unwealthy area. And it goes town, and it's literally like checkerboarded, like rich and poor. It's the weirdest
that is
weirdest
really weird.
thing.
Well, yeah, no, I had more of the like '80s rich kid in Manhattan experience.
Yeah, I did not have that.
And then when my parents split up and I moved out here with my mom, it pretty quickly became a poor kid.
Yeah.
It was a big part of my politics. Is that
Yeah.
I grew up with the experience of both being a very rich kid and a very poor kid.
Yeah.
And so, not only do I know how rough it is being poor, which no rich person does. But I also know how easy it is being rich.
Yeah.
And I know just how much all you poor folks out there are getting totally fucked. And just how good the rich people have it.
We lived in Park Slope, Brooklyn, growing up, so that's like that's rich Brooklyn. It's
Right.
not like you
Right,
know,
oh, yeah.
Bushwick. But yeah, we were pretty well off, at least in my understanding at the time. We would like go to the diner
You
for
felt well off.
breakfast. Yeah, we lived in a brownstone. It was like nice. And then the recession, and we had a big lawsuit about lead paint, long story. And then it was like, stew for dinner every night.
Right.
For years and years, and I
Right.
couldn't afford to buy clothes, and all my friends at the school I went to on Long Island thought I was the poor kid, and I would get made fun of because all my clothes were from the thrift store, and that makes me a loser bad guy, and yeah.
I can say in high school, the rich kids, I was friends with the rich. That was a weird thing too. Like growing up rich, I was like, as a little kid, I was steeped in like rich culture. So even later youth, where I was very much not rich, I still tended to connect with other rich kids at school because like we had the shared cultural experience. And I have to say, they did not ever I was never made fun of for being poor. I don't think in high school.
Very much so.
And I did feel very embarrassed. Like, for example, there was a period. My mom always drove her dad's old cars. And there was like an old Ford Econoline van and a big bronze Buick. And
Yuck.
the Buick was cool. And a beast of a car, like unsmashable. Like I remember, it was so big that parked in our driveway, the ass of the car would hang out into the street. And there was one time when like a Mack truck was coming up the street and it hit the Buick's ass, and literally like the whole front of the Mack truck was like imploded, and there was like a dent in the Buick. Like those old cars were built to fucking last. They are tanks. But anyway, she tended to drive me to school in the van, and then there was one day where she was at a theater rehearsal in a not so nice area, and while she was in the rehearsal, there was a liquor store robbery across the street and shots fired. And I was actually with her at that rehearsal, and we came out to find that 2 bullets had gone through the windshield of the van. One of the bullets was embedded in the sun screen, the little thing. Like I dug it out of the hole in the sunscreen, and we didn't know where the other bullet went. But literally, then I think it was like maybe like 2 years before she repaired it because there was no money.
Crazy.
And so yeah, so for like 2 years, every time I was dropped off and picked up from school in a car with bullet holes in the windshield.
Whoa.
So I was very embarrassed. I felt like the poor kid, but I don't think rich kids ever at that school. And it was a music magnet, you know, like I was in like an arts program.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was a little more enlightened
Yeah.
than your average high school social context.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I was like, that was nice. You know, kudos to those rich kids who never called me a poor loser.
Well, yeah. Good for them.
Good for them.
Long Island, fuck you. And yeah, I mean, that's another thing though, is experiencing like the vast shift in how you live your life based on just like a bad time for your parents economically, how much your life changes. I think that's
and your status in society.
That staunch shift is like just as impactful as anything else on your politics.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if we had always just been really well off, like hanging out and to put into perspective, I don't want to mislead. My parents live in a very nice house still. We always had a very nice house. Part of why we didn't have a lot of money was because our house was so nice.
You had that weird experience of a period where it's like we're living in this beautiful fancy house and eating stew.
It was like we can't afford to get food, but here's your 10-bedroom mansion.
Yeah.
It's not a mansion. It's a good house, but
yeah, it's a family house.
It's a family house. It's nice. It's sizable, and you know, it was a very weird thing to be called the poor kid and then go home to my awesome house with a bunch of property.
Your house is a good model, or our dad and Lisa's house, where it's like the parents each have they have their bedroom, they have
master bedroom.
There's a master bedroom. They each have an office where they can do their work as composers, and then there are rooms for the kids.
One room for Katie, one room for me.
Yeah. And now they have a guest room because you moved out.
Yeah, essentially.
Which I think is not
which Katie uses as her second room.
Okay.
Katie's my sister. Yeah. It's Kate. Well, what they're doing now is like it's the downstairs is like Katie's apartment.
Okay. Well, and it's interesting. Well, now since that's nice for her, now she has a room where she sleeps and a room where she can do her music and stuff. And that's actually an interesting thing. Now I'm thinking of when we were talking earlier. I think that's
one room for Shadow, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's another way you can ethically justify perhaps an additional bedroom of like if you want to have a guest room. I think a guest room is a nice
guest
thing
rooms are cool. People
have.
sleeping over. I love a sleepover. I don't understand people who don't love a sleepover. I love a sleepover.
And
let me sleep over, girl.
And Clappy69, that's interesting. You had a similar experience, and I feel like that's a huge, like I was saying earlier, a huge thing for me. And I often. I'm very much of the opinion that rich people, their commentary on poverty and their prescriptions for poverty are worthless. Rich people have no frame of reference. They unless they go through a period of years of being poor, and I say years very specifically because there's a lot of people who are like, I had to work a minimum wage job at the golf course one summer when I was 19.
Yeah.
Like, no. That does not count.
When I was 16, I did like half a shift at the restaurant once.
Yeah, no. I need you to work several years straight at a shitty job.
Yeah.
And feel that constant economic anxiety.
Yeah.
To really understand. And so, really, I like whenever I hear a rich person talking about these issues, like they almost always sound like a complete fucking idiot. There are some exceptions and outliers, but again, even those people who are rich now, like they weren't rich before, and that's why they have that perspective. Anyone who was born rich and then went right into a steady job out of high school or college or whatever, most likely college if they're rich, they like if any of you are watching, you have no idea what poverty even is. You don't know.
Yeah.
You live on a different planet from poverty. And I think it's why there are so many awful takes from well-off people in the world of politics, because they just have no fucking idea just how bad poverty really is.
Well, yeah,
you gotta live it.
And you know what's funny? We were talking about this with Dustin yesterday about how, like, oh, technology, and you're not poor anymore because of technology. It's your new wealth or whatever.
Right.
And it just feels like that same energy of people who are like, you can't be homeless and have a cell phone.
Right.
I'm
if our choices...
what costs more, a house or a cell phone?
Yeah. First of all, it's a false choice. It's a false binary. And if let's say hypothetically, our choices are either a society where, a lot of people can have like fancy high-tech phones and big TVs, but also a lot of other people have to be labor slaves. If it's a choice between that world or a world where we don't have much technology and I'm just sitting on a porch of my wooden cabin in a rocking chair sipping an iced tea, but there's like no TVs and no phones, like I'll take that. And and there's equity, and like people don't have to be
like people
constantly
like
working,
each other and
people like each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love technology. We're talking to you right now on a very high-tech computer setup, using a very amazing technology called the internet.
We don't want to be disingenuous. This is
No. I love technology. I'd rather keep the technology and like I said at the beginning, this is a false choice.
Yeah,
this is a choice that capitalists present, and it's a lie.
If the choice was
real, I think the far more ethically defensible choice would be technological devolution.
If that's what led to wealth equality,
yeah, if that was the only way, and it's not. We can keep the technologies and even leverage the technologies towards greater equity among people in society. Oh yeah, no, Clappy 69. This is true. This is true. Well, and this is also why I think a big part of my perspective is that not only did I have it during childhood, but also in adulthood, I have experienced both working shitty minimum wage jobs where I was paid shit and worked to the bone, and I've also worked office jobs as a writer where I've made six figures, and so again, like I not only do I know what it feels like to be poor as a child, but I know what it feels like to be poor as an adult, and I know what it feels like to be poor as an adult after you had a few years of being rich. Not that I'm necessarily recommending this experience.
That little flippy floppy.
Yeah, like living life as an economic yo-yo isn't exactly fun, and that's like again a part of why we're doing this, to leave that lifestyle behind, to build an enterprise for ourselves. And it undoubtedly provided me with a unique perspective. And the thing about if you're only poor when you're young and then you, in adulthood, experience steady economic advancement, is it's very easy for a human brain to then reflexively think like, well, I deserve this.
I bootstrapped it.
I earned it, and completely ignore all the many factors of luck and privilege that brought you to that. I mean, literally, the job I worked that I got where I was six figures a year was just because a friend I knew worked there, and they text messaged me, and they were like, "Hey, we're looking for another writer. You want to come in and interview?" Like, literally, it was entirely because of, like...
Boom, economic freedom.
Boom, economic freedom. Because I happened to meet this guy in high school.
Luck.
And another friend, and I wasn't as close with him at the time. We hadn't spoken that much, but another friend who I was closer with recommended me to him. So, like, look, credit to me of, like, I'm a guy who, like... I'm likable and I'm chill with people, and so obviously that fuck you that definitely contributed to the fact that a friend recommended me to another friend, and that friend thought like, yeah, let's bring him in for an interview. There certainly is credit for me to take there, but again, it's like luck ruled the day to even give me that opportunity. Now, also, I think I made good use of it. I went in, I took it seriously, I did good work, I was whatever. There are, of course, there's all this nuance in terms of like what has a person earned and how much was their merit and how much was luck. And based on everything I've ever seen in life and all the science I've seen about these dynamics in society, luck rules. You know? By no means, not the only factor by any means, but the primary factor, very much so.
And hey there, welcome
What's
to the
up,
chat.
UIXWFQIT? Welcome to the chat.
We've been talking about worker co-ops for the last few hours.
Yeah, we've been
and,
doing some research on worker co-ops, refreshing and expanding our knowledge on the subject, and how
why they're
they
pretty cool.
work. And why they are in many ways superior to traditional firms.
Capitalist firms.
Yes.
Worker co-ops are basically businesses, you could say, where the workers have a
Democratically
democratic
control, yeah.
process to determine their wages, their position in the company, etc., etc. There are worker owners, so the people who work at the company own the company essentially, and everybody is happy and feels good.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's a system where the means of production are democratically controlled by workers.
Which is cool and great.
The all-male brothel worker. It could be. It certainly could be. And I think a brothel would be better as a co-op.
It was popular in my country. It doesn't
Oh, it
work
doesn't
good.
work good.
What
do you base that
country?
on?
And yeah, I wanna hear about it.
Because everything we're reading in terms of the statistics seems pretty positive.
The
overall.
data seems like it's pretty positive, yes. But I'm always happy to hear anecdotal stories about it. Poland
post-communism.
Let's take a look. And I'm not doing this to like debunk you. I'm genuinely curious.
Well, no, and there could certainly be examples of worker co-ops that didn't work well. And based on all the data we just researched of modern worker co-ops, post-communism was quite a while ago. Modern worker co-ops are working great all over the world.
Oh, Brazil has the most worker co-ops. Interesting.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Italy, but Brazil.
OCDC co-op. Let's see. Oh, nope. Too many pages.
Too
Something a little more succinct.
much.
Worker cooperatives in a globalizing world. National Cooperative Council of Poland. Let's see.
Well, go down. Let's look at that National Cooperative Council of Poland. I'm curious about that.
Sure.
What they have to say.
Again. Oh, there's only 5 pages.
Nice.
Let's make it bigger for you guys.
Oh wait, I just want to see this. Okay, wait. No, I thought this would be different. Let's look up worker co-op. Success statistics, Poland.
Co-op success statistics. Oh my goodness. Well, this was the first thing that came up before, too.
Oh.
8.917. Is that 8,917
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
period?
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah, in Europe.
200,000 employees. Number of members, 8 million. That's cool. Key figures. So generally, mostly real estate activities. Agriculture and food industry is 19.7%.
Well, yeah, and I want to see, like, how are they doing?
Yeah. I'm just trying to
Yes,
go through all of
yeah.
it. Let's see. Research overview. History. 19 is. Following the arrival of democracy, so this is post-communism. Following the arrival of democracy and economic
Well, the
liberalization,
1990s is
the
way,
Yeah. Here, Second World War is communist Polish People's Republic would exist under a planned economy used as a vehicle for economic policy and sections such as. So this is just what it says after communism. The reputation and numbers of cooperatives suffered as a considerable decline.
Got it.
In more recent years, a renewed interest in cooperativism in Poland has emerged, responding to contemporary challenges such as social exclusion of groups including former employees of collective farms, minorities, and people with disabilities impacted by market liberalization. Social cooperatives have since been identified as playing a major role in the Polish social economy.
Of course, in questions of what works well. Not just a question of, like, if these cooperatives struggled and declined at the time, there's also the question of, like, did the capitalist firms that replaced them, did they work better? Like, they seem to work better in terms of business, but did they work better in terms of, like, actual treatment of employees?
Right, I'm curious.
And I would guess, based on all the data we were reading from around the world, that there's probably similar, that this renewed movement of cooperatives in the modern day is probably, I would guess, is experiencing similar success to the other movements around the world. And nice emotes, Cheeseburger Merv.
Several areas for reform are highlighted by the national expert. The future structure of new cooperative legislation requires careful consideration in order to coherently address the many special laws that regulate cooperatives. For instance, in the area of tax regulation, it is necessary to distinguish between surpluses arising from transactions with members and profits from transactions with third parties. Run-on sentence. Cooperative audit also requires reform that in order to make it more effective. In order to make it more effective.
It's a little weirdly written.
Interesting. In addition, the expert highlights that promotion of cooperatives is not yet a public function. So
This isn't really talking about how they're doing.
Yeah.
I want to.
I don't know. It's hard to find. I'm looking. Let's see.
Worker co-op sector continues to grow in the USA. I mean, we've already gone through in depth tons of data and evidence for how worker co-ops are working great all over the world.
But
yeah, that's one example. You're speaking of that this group of co-ops in also post-communist Poland. That's also important political context.
I also don't want to just say you're wrong, whatever.
No, not at all.
I'm not saying that at all.
No, I'm just saying that this one example of a co-op in co-op struggling in this particular period of the 90s in Poland is not a dismissal of worker co-ops. Whereas in your first comment, you said it doesn't work good, seemingly saying that worker co-ops don't work good. And the data does not back up that assertion. All the data that we just spent hours looking at says that worker co-ops are on the rise around the world and that they're actually more stable in a business sense.
More
stable
than capitalist firms.
Than traditional capitalist firms. They treat that, then definitely the worker satisfaction is radically higher.
I mean, this is in the United States, but here, just this alone.
Well, yeah, and we've been looking at it in the United States, in Italy,
Spain.
Hi, buddy, in Spain. You're a good boy.
But yeah, I mean, in the context of Poland post-communism, I don't discredit what you're saying at all.
Yeah, it just doesn't invalidate worker co-ops. They're great. All the data seems to suggest they're great.
Yeah.
Especially in the modern world. And we started off this whole segment with looking at the distinctions between traditional worker co-ops and more modern ones. Anyway, I'm feeling like we've done a pretty damn good overview now of worker co-ops, refreshed a lot,
Quite a few
learned
hours.
a lot.
Yeah.
And got some great links for future reference, a nice little Google Doc together. And I think my conclusion still is worker co-ops are fucking great and,
cool and fun and good.
Much better than traditional capitalism. And let's all convert to market socialism.
If you're just joining and you're catching us wrapping up, follow us, hang around.
And then do you want to play some games?
It's been 5.5 hours.
Okay.
I'm tired.
Cool. Great. Well, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone who was here today. Great Clown College segment. And this one will be going up on YouTube.
Yeah. So if you want to watch the whole thing and, obviously comment things that you think, we'll read them.
Please do. And everyone who's here, please come back and hang out again. And please, we always love questions and disagreements. And if you haven't followed us, give us a follow and a subscription. Subscribe. Get rid of those pesky ads.
Tomorrow we are gonna watch some cartoons in the daytime, in the morning, noon Pacific Standard.
Well, we'll start with some games and gab as per usual.
But around 3-ish. We have tentative plans on having a conversation with someone
who wanted to speak to us directly on voice and ask us some questions about our beliefs.
And we're going to chat with them.
We're going to chat with them if they're here and maybe chat with somebody else. Who knows?
And if not, we're just going to goof off and want to play games and talk shit.
But we'll start with games and gab. We'll go over some news and then we'll get into Toon Goons, watch some old cartoons, goof around. And and then as per usual, we for anyone who's new to us, we stream Monday through Thursday, starting at noon Pacific Standard Time, and we go until ? Depends on the day. And we love to talk about philosophy and politics and current events, and play video games and goof around and look at silly things.
And gossip.
You know how when you broadcast your thoughts in public where anyone on earth can watch them, it's gossip.
What's a gossip?
You cannot gossip on a street.
Cheeseburger Murphs were so random. So random.
You cannot broadcast to the entire earth and then say, we're gossiping. Doesn't make any sense.
We're gossiping.
Okay, so yes, thank you again, everyone who is here today.
If you don't know us, follow us.
Yes,
Come back
follow us,
tomorrow.
come back. And we love you madly.
I'll do a dance.
So long, Sweetie Pies, Cheeseburger Merv, and Clappy69. Excellent to have you as always.
And our new friend. And hey, I
our
know
new
you
friends.
caught us as we were wrapping
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
but definitely am hearing you, and that
Yeah, we hear
perhaps in
your
the context of
thoughts.
Poland, worker co-ops are not, functional in the same way that they are in America or in Spain or Italy. It totally could depend on the
possible.
country. And obviously, Casey and I always want to learn more about more stuff.
Well, every country has its own context.
Exactly.
Culturally speaking and historically. And so, yeah, there are certainly possibilities of that. And again, currently I am of the mind and I hold the position that worker co-ops are fantastic.
Okay.
And,
agree.
and that today's research only reinforced that belief for me.
Cool.
All
Got
right.
it.
Right to you, Cheeseburger Merv.
Kissy, kissy, smoochy,
Kissy,
smoochy.
kissies all around. We
if
love
you
you
don't
all
follow
madly.
me, I'm gonna cry in a hole. We're gonna go watch Better Call Saul. Bye.
We're going to watch Better Call Saul, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time on the Casey and Zoe thing. I am Casey Katsaris.
I'm Zoe Katsaris.
And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.